Starving Artist Podcast with Dave Fowler. So, welcome to the Starving Artist Podcast. I got a very special guest tonight, super talented Cory Croft from Cory Croft and the Band of Phantoms. So, it's kind of a funny story how we met. Wasn't on tour, wasn't anything like, wasn't at a club.
No,
it was
I
working with your
worked
dad,
on your house. Yeah,
putting some windows in the house. So it was fun. But yeah, man. So I know that you've got quite a catalog. Even in just the last couple of years. I mean, what, 2 albums just last year alone? So
yeah, I don't stop.
Singles and stuff. Cool. So for the people that don't know, so first off, I'll say this. I've always been kind of jealous of the band name. Cory Croft and the Band of Phantoms
Really?
is one of the coolest names I think I've heard. But
That's
it just
awesome.
kind of
I'm glad
dawned
you
on
dug
me.
it.
It just dawned on me the other day. I'm like, wait a second. Is it the Band of Phantoms because he's the only one? So is it Phantoms because there's no one there? And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense now. Like, he's doing all the stuff. But
That's awesome.
It's that meme where I was like, I was today years old when I realized this. Like, I was today years old when I realized that it's the Band of Phantoms because it's just you doing everything.
Yes, I'm so glad that you got that. Like, that's my level of wit.
I love it. I've literally I've wanted that band name for so long. I'm like, man, that's such a fucking awesome name. It's such a good name.
Honestly, it came from when I started like writing my own music and stuff like that. Like, I had been in bands here and there, like when I was in school and shit like that, like playing with friends and whatever. I did a handful of bands like that. Some of them were great and some fucking sucked.
I think it's kind of par for the course.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get like one great song for like every 4 bands you're in.
Pretty much.
I for my 18th birthday, I was given a guitar, and then I graduated like a month later, and I took that guitar with me to Texas for the summer and spent the summer away and lived at my grandparents' house with my cousin, and just kind of like, it was a break to get the hell out of New England because there was so much that had gone on with me around that time and dealing with high school bullshit and young 16-year-old love bullshit and heartbreak and everything that came with that. And I just needed an escape. I needed to get the fuck away from New England. And so I took that guitar with me and spent 3 months basically away from everyone I knew except for like my grandparents and my cousin, and hid in a bedroom most of the time, just learning every Misfits song I could think of. Just like all the Danzig years, like all the just simple sloppy bar chord fast music. Just because
I think that's how Doyle learned how to play Misfits song too, is just kind of as he went, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Do you have a favorite line? So I mean, is Danzig, is that your favorite lineup?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
For
that's
sure.
Awesome.
So I spent a lot of time learning that kind of stuff. And what I learned when I was learning how to play Misfits songs and things like that, it's very like early phase rock and roll. Like, it's like 50s rock, just sped the fuck up.
It's kind of funny. So I know like Anarchy in the UK is one of my favorite albums of all time. I'm sorry, not Anarchy, never mind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols. One of my favorite albums of all time.
I got that on my wall over there, actually.
But it's funny. So like
any
interview that you watch with them, they don't really refer to it as punk. They refer to it as rock and roll.
It's rock and roll. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny that you say that, because I was thinking about that today, listening to Anarchy in the UK, and I'm like, it's funny how this literally created a genre that people, love and are a part of, but the guys in the band always considered what they did to be rock and roll. So it's funny they said that.
Same with like Motorhead and shit like that. Like, it's all rock and roll. But so when I realized it was all like 50s rock and that kind of shit, like when I started writing my first songs on my own, because for the longest time I didn't even know how to play guitar. I just like tried to shout a lot and ended up being the singer in a lot of bands. Singer used loosely because I was just yelling.
I was the guy that yelled.
But it was a great place to be when you had a bunch of notebooks full of lyrics from writing shit in the middle of classes and whatever, and carrying that with you into garages and whatever. But when I started actually like forming my own songs and stuff, like coming up with chord progressions and shit like that, learning a lot of Misfits songs kind of helped me figure out how chord progressions worked. And I kind of realized at that point, like the way that they were writing their songs, it was really derivative of like 1950s rock and roll and that kind of stuff. So the songs that I first started writing were like horror punk kind of songs, like fucking doo-woppy boppy silly shit about necrophilia and Brides of Frankenstein and dumb shit like that. So the name Cory Croft from the Band of Phantoms was derived from like Dion and the Belmonts. It was
Oh,
always
wow.
like the singer name and the backing band, you know? So I kind of played into that, and it was Cory Croft and the backing band, the Band of Phantoms. And then when I was able to like title everything that, it kind of created an umbrella for everything that I made past that point. I could call it the Band of Phantoms, and that could be whatever the backing noise was.
So you've had that name for a long time then.
I've had that name since probably 2012.
Wow.
I've had that name probably for about 10 years.
That's crazy. So
it's weird to say that now out loud.
Sure. So New England, for people that might be listening that aren't familiar with New England is an awesome place, but at the same time, it's very isolated. And I feel like it's one of those places that if people don't leave by a certain time, they never will.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
What was it like for you? I mean, that's any time that you're kind of moving at that age, it's going to be shell shock enough as it is. But when you're moving from New England to Texas, that's going to be a crazy change.
Nothing.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was exactly what I needed at the time, because I like to finish up school and stuff. Like I was a total fuck up when it came to high school. Like I just didn't care about anything, and I like was on a fast track to not graduating. And excuse me. All I really cared about was just like getting high and hooking up with girls, and that's it. I didn't care about anything else, and it was fun, but it was ultimately fucking me over. And if I didn't like get my shit together and graduate, then my whole life would be a mess, and I probably would have been kicked out, and just, you know, like everything was rocky. So I focused like on trying to get my life together and dealing with like 2 different home lives, because my parents were separated from the time I was in like middle school forward. So like the support systems were kind of rocky, because on one side, like my dad's like got my back 100%, and on the other side, my mom wasn't as stable. So it put me in a lot of weird situations in like my late teens, like making the decision to move out of my mom's house permanently so I could live in a stable environment and focus on graduating. And that kind of shit was weird, because it felt like I was breaking up with my mom in a weird way when I told her I was trying to like focus on my life and get out of there. And then after that point, I just like smoked a lot of weed and hid in my room and studied and wrote papers and did really boring shit. And my like life around that point got like, it was more socially focused after I like started hooking like myself onto my schoolwork and banging things out. But I just like, by the time I graduated, I was so burnt out and so stressed out with everything, and spent like a year and a half trying to make up for 4 for high school, that I just like, I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to get the hell away from everything. I wanted to like forget who I was before everything and just figure out who I was again going into like adulthood.
I mean, that's a hard time just for anybody that's got things kind of 100% going the way that they want them to go, let alone if you're kind of dealing with things. You know, I mean, I feel like just out of the get-go, you're pushing a rock up a hill at that point in your life, no matter who you are. So to have other things to deal with just makes it tougher. I mean, so were you writing songs at that point when you were that age? Or I know you said you got the guitar on the 18th birthday, but were you?
Yeah.
You said there was a lot of notebooks and journals. Like, were you writing a lot?
Oh yeah. Yeah. My main band when I was in high school was called Reason for Treason, and I didn't name it. It was me, one of my best friends, Colby, and his older brother. He was a drummer, and he had all the gear. He was just like a couple years older than us, and accumulated a collection of instruments from other bands he was in and stuff like that. And
you've been lucky with band names though, man. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was cool because we used to call it R4T, and when we would write it out, like we would just write R4T on everything, and it looked like we were just writing rat on everything.
That's awesome. That's cool. I like that. That's good.
So that was a cool name. It was fun. It was Reason number 4 Treason.
I like that. Now,
and we had 4 members, so it was cool.
Oh, it's perfect then.
Yeah, it was nice.
Shows then too, or
we played a handful of shows that were really terrible,
like parties and stuff like that.
A little bit. It was we got booked on like whatever the drummer, because he was like the oldest one, so like
Right.
we were like 15 and he
Oh,
was
wow.
like I think 20.
Okay.
So he was kind of just like ushering us into the world of playing out. And I remember this is the worst thing ever. Like when we first started hanging out together and playing music, a lot of the time we would just play songs, like we'd play cover songs. We would play like shit that like everybody agreed to play, just like so we can get a feel for how we like played together and we could like get an idea of
Mhm.
timing and shit like that, and just learn how to do it. And so we spent a couple months in their basement just like hammering out like it was a lot of Rage Against the Machine for some reason, which is funny because like I like Rage Against the Machine, but it was never like a go-to for me
Right.
for music. But now I always associate that with like being in that band.
Right.
But we ended up playing a handful of their songs and made up a couple and stuff like that, and like developed like a kind of a set list mix of like covers and a handful of originals. And then we had gotten a show booked, and it was at AS220 in Providence. And we had like a couple weeks leading up to it, and we just like played the set list every other day and just like
Mhm.
we got solid with it. But it was like a mix of, again, covers and originals.
Sure.
We get there that night and the sound guy is like, no covers, and we're like, what?
Jesus. Okay.
And we cut our set in half. We played all of our originals like that we knew of, which were like only maybe like 12 minutes of material, and then
Okay.
played like a 25-minute horrible jam session just to fill in the time, and then did another like original at the end, which was just like a really bad like poetry recital over some like fast, heavy, loud noise. It was not good. I feel bad for everybody that went.
Oh,
There's
man.
a recording of it somewhere, but I think my friend Colby must have burned it in a fire by now because we were so horribly embarrassed. I remember after that night, the next time that we hung out and went to like practice and everything, like and play together again in the basement, we immediately started writing original songs.
Right.
Because like we were like, we're never gonna let that happen to us again because of how like embarrassed we were by it.
Wow. So when you're like at that time when you were writing songs, what was the process for you? Were you more like, okay, I have this idea in my head for some lyrics, maybe melody? Because like
uh
there's some people that can only really write with a guitar in their hands, and there's other people
yeah.
that can hear everything and then they just need the guitar after the fact to kind of put it together.
Yeah.
Where do you fit into that?
My process nowadays is completely different from how it was back then.
How was it when you
It's
started?
actually the complete opposite from how I do things now. Back then, I used to write all my lyrics first for everything. It was always the lyrics first, and I always had like this high concept in mind, and like it was really focused, and like I knew exactly what I wanted it to be before I even put like paper to or pen to paper. But like I had ideas for like concept albums and just basically trying to like tell stories.
Mm,
They never really like amounted to much, but like I always had like narratives kind of in mind. But I realized if I wrote lyrics before I started writing instrumentals, it was really hard to put music to the words,
right.
and I didn't really have a sense of how many syllables you could actually fit into a line when you're singing it out loud versus
Sure.
like the how tight you can write lines on paper and just like cram a block of
Sure.
of really tightly written words into a fucking 8 by 11 page.
Right.
So like you could fit all those words in a song, but the song is going to be 12 minutes long if you're okay with
Right.
that. And playing in a high school punk band, you can only fit so much into like a minute and a half.
Right. Otherwise, it's like a poetry slam, or whatever.
Yeah, and you're just machine gun mouthing things, and I didn't want to ever do stuff like that. So
Sure.
everybody pretty much like we wrote riffs and stuff, and then my drummer actually, Mike, the older kid, he was the one that kind of helped us put songs together because we didn't really ever have much of any experience doing it.
Right.
And like he introduced us to a lot of cool music and kind of got the ball rolling for a lot of us. And like to this day, I'll have my friend Colby play bass on some Band of Phantom songs, so he's like the only other member. If there like was like a list of members, he'd probably be the only one.
Yeah.
It'd be me, and then it would be but
It's always the bass
yes,
players. Like it's funny. Like 2 days ago, the bass player, he's one of my first bass players. I've known him probably over 20 years now.
yeah.
And we don't talk for a couple of months at a time. They'd be like, hey man, just saw this and maybe think of this and that. And it's like, by the way, I got an SG if you want to borrow it. Like, yeah, sure. Oh, by the way, my solo record. You want to throw some bass in there? Oh yeah, sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
like
don't know what it is
bassists
with
are
the
always
bass
cool to
players.
do
It's always, it's like,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like so chill, so low key. It's so funny. So
But yeah, to this day, like he still will chime in here and there on songs that I write and stuff
that's
like that. I
awesome
even
though.
actually re-recorded a song from our first band recently. I didn't put it on my most recent album, but I'm considering putting out like a EP of B-sides,
Mhm.
and that is definitely going to be on it. It will come out eventually. It's just a matter of time.
So let's fast forward a little bit because there's two things I want to mention. For people that don't know, I have to say, like, your album artwork is fucking phenomenal, man. Like, there's like,
Thank you,
I
thank
literally
you.
look at, I'm like, holy shit, like the album artwork is like next level. Like, are you
Really?
doing, yeah, like, dude, like, first and foremost, so I think Leaves is my favorite album of yours, just for the
Yeah,
fact that, like,
that's a big fan favorite. Almost
yeah,
everyone I know of that likes my music like either discovered me through Leaves or
right.
likes it the best.
So for me, like at this stage that I'm at in my life, I listen to, like, I mean, I was the rock and roll guy for so long, and now I feel like really I listen to a lot of soundtracks. I listen to a lot of
Yeah,
soundtracks and a lot of classical music, not a lot of stuff with lyrics. So it's nice because it's like mood music, and it kind of makes you think about stuff. So like depending on what you're listening to, that's kind of what starts kind of feeding your mood a little bit, and this is where you start
right.
going.
Yep, yep.
So I think that's why I gravitate more towards that one, just because like that's kind of where I'm at with my life, like the style that I'm listening
Understandable.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
But dude, I
I like
mean,
Leaves because it kind of fits for any occasion.
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, so the album artwork is just fucking phenomenal. Like that's, obviously the music is great,
Yeah,
but the first
thank
thing
you.
you see is the album artwork, and you're just like, holy shit! Like, where do you do that? How do you come up with this stuff? Like, I don't.
Um,
Do you understand like how crazy talented that you really are? Like the
no.
album artwork that you have, dude. Just the
Yeah.
sheer volume of music that you put out is fucking insane. Like, I've been working on a solo
Thank you
record for
so
two
much.
years, and I'm at like
Yeah.
12 songs, and like four of the songs are from that I've had for fucking 15 years. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And it's like,
yep.
how's this gonna go? How's this gonna, But you're like
I
fucking
wanna.
7 albums in at this point.
I wanna get to the songwriting and the speed thing. But before we escape this, I want to focus on Leaves a little bit real quick. The album cover for Leaves was a stock photo image. I was trying to find a good picture for it.
Mhm.
My good friend, I don't want to say his real name. He goes by Nick Nocturne. He has a YouTube channel called Night Mind, where
Okay.
he covers like internet mysteries and horror phenomena and stuff like that. It's mostly
Ooh,
like ARGs, if you're familiar with those.
not
And
particularly, but anything with horror and kind of ghosty
yeah,
stuff, I'm
um
into. So
yeah, ARGs are altered reality games. It's
okay,
like people will make like YouTube videos that are like they're fictitious, but it's like a handheld video of like something weird happening, and then like they
okay,
post it on YouTube playing as a character, and then have like a Twitter account as that character, and like they'll like bait people to like interact with them while they're on social media, and then like go to different places and like film new things in weird places, and just kind of
okay,
like attract an audience and kind of introduce this audience to a mystery, and kind of spoon feed them like tidbits of information to get like force the audience to interact with your game and solve the mysteries that you're laying down. His YouTube channel kind of explains those sorts of things, and he built a huge following around the time that I started doing the Band of Phantoms. And he wanted to branch out from compiling videos of explaining the story arcs of these ARGs to getting into different media. So the first thing he wanted to do that was outside of like internet-based horror was a novel called House of Leaves.
okay.
And if you're familiar with House of Leaves, it's a very weirdly laid out book that I can't even begin to like describe what it's about. Like if you're interested, look it up.
Sure.
Any explanation of it, I could do no justice.
Okay.
But just like flipping through the book, it's everything is like it doesn't follow a strict like like beginning to end format. It's like you'll flip through pages and like just the page layouts are strange and things are in different colors and overlapping on each other, and you have to like read the book half upside down to get into like one section of it, and then like
that's crazy.
I can't even begin to describe it, but basically it's like 4 or 5 stories that are happening simultaneously. Like as you finish the book, you basically have to reread it again to get a different perspective and get through like the 4 or 5 stories that are in it. But he like scoured this book and sorted out all the plots in it, and then came to me and was like, hey, I want to do my first book explanation video, and it's going to be for this book. I can breeze over like the synopsis of it for you, but I'm going to do a lot of talking and there's no video for this, so I'm not going to really have much footage to like kind of use as filler for my parts, or like in between parts where I explain things. He goes, so I need an ambient soundtrack for the background of this thing.
Oh wow, okay.
So he asked me to do it, and I was like, absolutely, I'm in. My only stipulation is I want to be able to release it as an EP. And he quickly agreed, and we sat and talked about it for a little bit. And I remember we were sitting at my kitchen table right over here actually, and he was just like telling me about like his ideas and what he wanted out of it. And pretty much he just asked for simply slow music that wasn't too intrusive, that would sound good behind narration. I was like, you got it. So I spent Leaves was written in about 2 weeks. It was written the first 2 weeks of February 2019, I believe. And it kind of worked out really well because the timing that he asked me to do it fit really well into it feels weird to say that it fit really well into me like mourning the loss of my mom, because she died in February 2017. So then by 2019 was the second anniversary, and I was just kind of like getting used to life after the fact.
Sure.
So around that time, I just kind of like hid in my apartment in front of my keyboard and my laptop, and put on like a 60 BPM click beat, and then started playing piano and looped that piano, and then put like a string synth track on top of that, and then put like light percussion, and then started just layering things and layering things and layering things. And I sent him the first track and he fucking loved it. It was Birch, the first track on Leaves. The tracks on Leaves are in the order that they appear on the track order, were the order that I wrote them in. Yeah, that album was just, it was purely, he needed backing noise and I was more than happy to supply it.
Right.
And it was a fun exercise for me because it was all, it wasn't like intro, verse, chorus, solo, chorus, end, the way that a lot of like standard rock songs are. Like this was more layered and more linear. I like to think of it like the album The Fragile, 9 Inch Nails. It's like that's my version of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where it's really experimental and not my usual go-to, and I was just kind of like deep in my head and deep in my feelings and just kind of hid and didn't talk and let the music speak for itself. And to this day, like Leaves is my most successful release.
Right. It's kind of weird too, because I mean, I almost feel jealous sometimes of musicians and artists that can, how do I say, it's not that you don't care what people think. I mean, I'm sure to some extent there is that there, but just to be
sometimes I think I care too much.
Right. But that's the thing. Like I envy the people that can be so locked into something that it's almost like the judgment of others in your audience doesn't exist. You know, like for me, when I was talking to Paris on episode 1, I was talking, I kind of brought up a little bit, like for the longest time, I wrote songs that were like, are people going to think this is cool? Are people going to think this chord change is cool? Are they going to think the solo is cool? So there wasn't like that real soul into some of the stuff. It was just, okay, this kind of goes with this and this part goes with this and it sounds cool, so I'll do it. And I feel like now when I go to write stuff, it's more, what am I trying to say? You know,
Mm,
and it's nuts how I feel like you can say so much on a record that you're not saying anything, which is the
right.
coolest thing to me. You know, like
Yeah.
that's that's
Like
so awesome that you can like
the
just do that with music. But so is
it
it
was
was it
pure luck,
well,
honestly.
but it's also
Um
talent too. Like, was it easier for you to do
Shit.
something like Leaves versus the other stuff that you've done? That it's, I mean, first and foremost, like if anybody hasn't listened, listen now because you kind of run the gamut of what the sounds that you get. It's crazy to think that it's one person. Like, I really, honest to God, didn't think it was one person. So that's why, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I was like, holy shit! Like what? Like I just realized it's only one guy. Like it's just
Yeah,
one.
it's all me. Um it's I don't even know like where to begin about that. Like the one thing I was just thinking about with the way that like Leaves is written, and with saying a lot without saying anything. Like I've had people tell me that the last track on Leaves, a song called Maiden, the one where it's like
Okay.
piano and then like it turns into like this like funeral dirge and a bunch of
Mhm.
strings kind of come in, it turns into this big sweeping thing, and at the very end it cuts all that out, and then it just turns into like a slow piano progression and like music box twinkly sound, and then it ends on that. I've had people I've never even met like private message me telling me that like that song made them bawl their eyes out. I don't know why.
That's what I
Like
was going to ask you.
I don't know how that happens. I don't understand like how people hear things. Like I haven't had many moments where like I hear a song and it absolutely moves me, which is
Yeah.
weird to say because I've done that to people.
Right. No, I mean, I get it. Like I've had a couple of moments like that, but usually because I was already emotionally kind of just on the verge,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah. I get
that
that.
fucking
I
that
get
chord
that.
progression just hit the right way, and it just fucking sent
Yeah.
me over.
Yeah,
But
you're in a
so,
fucking you're terrible mood and your girl just dumped you and you listen to The Cure and cry your eyes
oh
out
my
in the
God,
car
dude.
like
Oh, there was a time in my early 20s that I was in a really dark depression for a long time, and
Yeah.
my life just consisted of the Crow soundtrack and Fear and
Oh, one
Loathing
of
in
the
Las
best,
Vegas.
dude.
So it was the
Hell
Crow
yeah.
soundtrack and Fear and Loathing in Las
Hell
Vegas, and that
yeah.
was all that I fucking did. But so, but like on a more serious note, though, so something like Leaves, even though it started off as, "Hey, I'm doing this project here, and I think this, I have this idea to do this."
Mm.
How like did Leaves start off as one of those things where, okay, I'm going to do essentially kind of a soundtrack, but then it becomes like a therapeutic coming to terms, like you mentioned your mom
Oh,
and stuff like that.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny like um I was kind of hired to write Leaves, but I think he knew what he was doing with the timing when he asked me to
Okay.
do it
Okay.
because like my friend he was there for me all through the situation of my mom getting sick and my mom passing and stuff like that, so like he understands that February fucking sucks for me, and I think he kind of just handed me this thing like, here, like I need some really like emotionally invoking shit, make it for me, I know
Oh
you
shit.
can because I know how you feel. So I
Okay.
almost feel like I got manipulated. Nah, I'm joking.
Sure, sure, sure.
But no, like it was perfect. He kind of tricked me into capturing a moment in time and making something beautiful out of something terrible.
So
And I honestly couldn't be more grateful for that happening the way that it did.
can you listen to your own music? Like, I mean, is that something you can go
Oh
back and
yeah.
listen to and you enjoy it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Because there are different things like I didn't think about the actual situation. Like it was more so like I was just kind of like, I feel like time kind of like happens with like a ripple. Like
Hmm.
if something really bad happens like on a certain month of a certain year, every time that month comes along for the next few, it's like dropping a stone in a pond, or there's like ripple waves that come out after that. I feel like each time you go through that cycle again, you feel that wave, but it's a little lower every time. And then eventually you just kind of like get used to it and things are cool and you can kind of deal with it.
That's a super
Um,
deep analogy right there. That's like,
but like, you know what I mean? Like you
yeah,
can
no, that
kind
just
of,
made me sit here and go like, holy shit. Yeah, no, that's spot on. That's a spot
but
on
yeah,
way to describe it.
I hit the second year around that time, and the first year is weird because everything is new, everything still sucks. Like dealing with like mourning and grief and stuff. Like the first year sucks because it's new and you're getting used to that person not being there for like the first rotation of holidays and that kind of thing. But then the second year I think is worse because you're going through it again. and the person isn't there. And now you kind of accept that's your new normal. That's how things are going to be from now on. So then that's the toughest one. And then after that, that's when you heal and you accept and you kind of keep rolling from there. And then the ripple effects like kind of lower and lower and lighten, and then it all plateaus and it's just normal life again. But like he captured that and like on that second year and gave me something to focus on instead of focusing on how shitty I felt. It kind of made me write about how shitty I felt. But doing Leaves gave me a chance to explore territories that I never really would have gone into on my own. Like there's like a lot of that music kind of registers to me as like video game background music, like RPG kind of music to me. But like the song Birch, I wanted to make it feel like winter. And I took in an echo track. My goal was to try to create an infinite loop on a reverb. So I put a looper and a reverb on my keyboard, and I set it to a piano setting, and I just cranked the reverb as high as it would go. And then I put it on this looper, and I hit a note, and then it would just go ding, 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 and I had a phaser on it. So the phaser was counteracting with the looper, and I could just create an infinite loop that would just never end. I could hit a note, and then it would just keep going.
Oh, wow.
Until like I had to actually manually fade out the reverb on the piano on that song at the end of the song, because if I didn't, it would probably still be ringing fucking 3 years later, however long it was.
That's funny.
So it was cool when I did that, because I realized if I hit a lower note, it creates like a ground, and then if I hit a higher note, it kind of created this sort of like twinkling to me. And like certain songs and certain sounds, there's a term for it. I think it's synesthesia or something, where like you can kind of see visuals based on the noises you hear. And with that, I've always been attracted to like winter sounding music, where it's like a lot of piano or twinkling, but like heavy drums and that kind of stuff. And I focused on that, and I wanted to capture the sound, I guess, of like snowfall.
Sure. It might
so that's
sound
what that
weird,
first song Birch is.
Okay. I know for me, like I have a couple of memories when cause in New England we used to get a lot more snow than we do now, but
now we just get fucking bitter cold.
I know
that and no snow. It's
that
weird.
First snowfall, I always would put on like the Edward Scissorhands soundtrack, because to me that was like the most like the intro to that, sitting there for the first snowfall. It's like so quiet and so peaceful.
Dude, Danny Elfman is a fucking genius too.
Yeah, man,
that dude is incredible.
He's my favorite. But
another composer that came from a band, from a fucking goth band, fucking Oingo Boingo and shit.
I know. But so you seem like, we have that in common, where, I mean, I've played shows, I've toured, I've done all that stuff, but the happiest I've ever been was in the studio, because I love the experimental part of things, like doing this or changing this and, backwards stuff here and a little bit of echo here and whatever I can.
You heard my shit. I throw samples into things.
Sure.
Like it's all about
it's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so much fun. So, I mean, because I feel like someone like you, especially, you could live in the studio.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you kind of do now.
A little bit.
You kind of live there now. I mean, all the stuff you put out. So do you record at home? Where do you record at? Okay.
It's usually either my kitchen table or my bedroom.
Wow.
Leaves was recorded in my kitchen.
Wow. Then you do all your own mixing and mastering and.
Yeah. I like doing it that way just because I like learning, and I like having the means of kind of choosing where things are channeled and that kind of stuff. By listening to a lot of music, it gives me an idea of kind of how things should sound.
Sure.
I just kind of try to sort it out myself. I don't really I don't have much like training in that kind of shit. Like I have friends that are like music producers and stuff like that, and listen to my mixes like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, but I like it.
I'm big into like panning guitars left and right, different parts and things like that too. And
A
lot of people, they just want to put everything in the middle, and like you can add a lot of ambiance stuff too. But
a lot of the way that I write my rock and metal, I'll dual track my rhythm guitar, and I'll pan one all the way to the left and one all the way to the right.
What I do.
And then when I do my lead guitar,
chorus and stuff, I'll put that right in the middle.
It's always dead center in the middle,
Yeah.
or if it's in the center while there are vocals are dead center, bass is dead center, but the guitar I'll slightly lower and I'll do like 50 on one side, 50 on the other side. So it kind of like if if the rhythm guitar is sitting on the far ends, the lead guitar is a little bit further in and the vocals in the middle, because it kind of gives everything its own
Sure.
space.
The thing I like about what you do is I can hear your influences on every track, but it doesn't sound like, but it's not like someone trying to sound like those influences, which I think
Yeah.
is really hard to do with just in general. It's hard not to sound like someone that you like. So I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
hear like the Nine Inch Nails and I hear the Misfits and I hear stuff. I mean, I hear a little bit of, I don't know if you're a fan or not, but I hear like Coheed in there too. A lot of things too, like with vocals and whatnot. Some of the runs that you do.
Yeah, honestly, no. Like I know a handful of Coheed songs, but um, I haven't really ever dug very deep. I know like my vocal register is very similar to Claudio Sanchez. I just
Mm,
have a naturally higher voice. So I just kind of go with it
sure,
and just kind of just experiment with like the limits of my voice.
it works,
But
man. It works.
that's really cool. I never have
It's
been
just like
compared
some of the
to
phrasing he
his
does
voice.
too, like the melodies and the phrasing. I'm like, okay, this reminds me of that, but it's not like, no, he's doing something that this person did. It's not like that. It's just like, okay, with music, it's a weird thing because like I think about this all the time. I mean, how many people have a guitar that's got 20 something frets on it, and the amount of material that's been created since the dawn of the guitar, the
Mm.
millions of songs, it's like there's got to be overlap at some point. So if
Oh,
you
for
can do
sure.
something that's like pretty unique and original, like that's kind of a miracle in it of itself, that you
That
can do
that's
something like that.
That's why I just put a Ouija board on a guitar and I let the ghosts write the songs for me,
That's
and then I
perfect.
sing on top of them.
That's always be a great. Make sure you take a picture. Be another awesome album cover for sure.
Oh, I know, right?
So I know that obviously you've got, like we mentioned a couple times, you have a ton of material out. So if you
Yeah.
were talking to someone, for some of the listeners that might not be familiar with you, where would you recommend, like, hey, you know what, for my catalog, if you want to get to know me, like this is it. We talked about Leaves obviously a lot, and for me
Yeah.
now, when I go back and listen to Leaves, I'm going to listen to it entirely differently than I did before I
I'm
talked to you.
sure. Oh, I'm
And
sure.
it's going to be, it's some things will resonate a little bit differently. But if you were to talk to someone and say, okay, where I want to get into the band of Phantoms, like where's a good place to start? Where's like with Zeppelin? Be like, well, I would say Physical Graffiti. That's where I would start you off with.
Good choice.
Where's your Physical Graffiti here? What's one is for you?
Um, Crimes of Passion. Crimes of Passion, absolutely. It's my second album. It's my longest album. It's I think an hour and 9 minutes, if I remember right. It's either 9 or 11. It's over an hour long. Um, that album, I didn't cut any song that I wrote from it, and that may be a weakness to it, but it may be a strength in that it presents everything that I was doing around that time. It it's funny with Crimes of Passion, that album, it's either 16 or 17 tracks long. It took me 2 years to write that album, and while I was doing that album, I wrote Leaves,
Oh wow.
and I made a cover album, which I
Okay.
I sent you the link
Sure. Yeah, I
to.
loved it. I loved it. I went right to the
I
Misfit
figured.
stuff.
Oh yeah, I figured.
Eagles Dare was the
That
first thing I listened to on there. So
Yeah.
I was like, this is good. This is really good.
I loved that. That playing that recording that album kind of taught me a lot of tricks. Like it was more kind of like a learning exercise, playing a bunch of old like 80s hardcore that I just
Mm-hmm.
love anyway. Um, I just kind of wanted to like learn a handful of the songs that I did record on that cover album, just because I wanted to do my own versions of them. Like
Sure.
whether or not they would ever be released it was
It was
completely
fun.
self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was writing Crimes of Passion while I was recording that. Like Leaves kind of got me going. Like that kind of put like wind in my sails. And once I started doing Leaves, um, I wrote my first original for my second album during the Leaves sessions. And then once I finished Leaves and was kind of like giving it its finishing touches
Mm-hmm.
before sending it over to Nick, I started focusing more on the music I was writing for that second album. And um Crimes feels like the marriage between where I was at mentally with Leaves versus what I wanted to go for sound wise with the cover album. What was it, like No Gods, No Masters, No Cover Charge or whatever? Because
Right.
capturing punk shit while trying to be witty about not charging anybody for it, because I don't think I could legally. Like that's not even on Spotify because I
Yeah.
can't put it up there without getting chased by every
Sure.
fucking
Yeah.
record label that all the bands that I covered are attached to.
Sure. Well, the real fans, they'll find it. They know that it's out
Yeah.
there somewhere. That's
But
awesome.
yeah, Crimes of Passion definitely would be my number one for if
Okay.
you want to figure out like sound wise what I'm all about, because there's so much variety there. Um, like some songs are like ridiculously like rough and heavy, and then there are other songs that are like really calm and go through these like kind of emotional journeys. Like I remember you were talking about like talking with Paris about how like there are certain songs where like you don't care like
Yep.
what people think about them because it's what you were like, the emotion that you were getting across while you were writing them.
Right.
And like so nobody can like take that away from you by saying,
Sure.
oh, that song sucks. Well, fuck you, it's not for you, it was for
Yeah.
me. There are a lot of songs that are like that on that album for me. But there are also other ones that I wrote with the intention of them being just catchy, fun rock songs.
Sure. I think I mean
Um,
it's kind of like fucking, sometimes you just want to get in and just fucking get down to it. Other times you
mhm.
want to make love. You know what I mean? It's kind of the way that I
Absolutely,
the way that I
absolutely.
think about
Music is the same way. Either I'm doing it for you or I'm doing it for me.
it. That's
And
good.
it's up to you to realize which one is which.
Oh man. It's gonna get us in trouble. Oh fuck.
Oh, I love it.
Uh, but
um,
so I know that I mean, obviously, mentioned a couple times the amount
sure.
of music that you have out is it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to go through. So if you're a fan, if you're new, there's a lot to sink your teeth into. You're not like a one EP kind of guy where there's 5 songs and like Guns N' Roses. I remember I was talking to Paris today. I remember going to Best Buy in South Philly and getting Chinese Democracy, and it's like,
Oh my
holy shit,
God.
man, that was in 2008. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like I don't want to
I
wait
remember
20
I
years for your next record to come out. You know what I
I
mean?
remember I got that on a burned like CDR.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's like I'm glad that it's nice that you're able to put out music fairly frequently, and I know that. So
I kind of force myself to,
okay,
honestly. If I feel like if I spend too much time kind of ruminating on songs, I could spend forever adding
sure,
little bits and details and adding one little harmony line after whatever, like shit that no one is ever gonna notice but me. So I kind of realize like I catch myself when I hit those rhythms where like I'm listening to it driving around after working on it for months, and then I come to the idea that I could add like a 3-word backing vocal on a verse that's not going to ultimately serve the song in a greater way, but I just had the idea to do it, so I want to do
right.
it. Like once I'm starting to realize that for every single song, it's time for me to finally fucking get the thing out so I can't touch it and fuck with it anymore.
I mean that's definitely the one kind of downside to being the only guy. I can relate to that too.
Yeah, I have
Whether
nobody to tell me no.
that's the thing, it's like no one. Every idea you have is a good idea because no one's
Mm,
there to say like, dude, we don't need that. We don't need that
exactly.
14th guitar track. We don't
Yeah,
need
and
that like that.
yeah, and I think all my friends are too nice because I'll send them mixes of like, hey, like this is what I've been up to. Like, what do you think about it? And they're like, oh, dude, it's fucking awesome. I'm like, no, don't tell me
Yeah.
that. Like, I'm
We all
not
we
looking
all
for
need
someone
that
to kiss
friend,
my
man.
ass,
Yeah, those friends that aren't afraid to tell you, like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is off
right?
key, or we all need those friends. We really do,
Yeah.
because that's the only way
Oh
that we
yeah.
kind of grow. So,
Mm,
I know your influences, like I know what you're into, and I know
mm,
how much visual played a part into those influences too. So I've seen some of the stuff
for
that you've
sure.
done, the videos and the different things that you've done. Like, how much is that an area that you haven't really got into yet that you want to get into, do more stuff like that? What's your plan as far as visual presentation for the stuff that you're doing next?
Oh, I definitely don't do enough of it.
Yeah.
That's
Is it
one thing.
is
I
it
I
just a
have a
matter of like not having the tools or the time or the connections or
probably a mix of all three,
okay,
actually. Honestly, I just wouldn't know who to go to for certain things. Like, uh, I have a song on my new album called "The Hanged Man," based on like the tarot card, and like the meaning of the tarot card just being hung against your will upside down and forced to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the general theme of that whole album, honestly, of A Proper Burial. But I had an idea of doing that song quite literally with a rope tied around my ankles, hanging upside down from a tree, and swinging around and reciting the song while adding like random bits of video and stuff in between to break it up or whatever. But like generally, I thought that would be a super cool way to do it. I don't know who I would trust to hang me in a tree.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. So I mean, visual plays a big part in kind of your overall, like what you see as far as like what you're presenting, because it's not just music. I mean, it's, you know, it's a whole package that I feel like you're trying to kind of come across with.
For sure. Did you see the video for 1031?
Is that the one where you're covered in
yes.
blood? Yes. It's cool.
That was a total like Sam Hain tribute.
Sure. I feel like no, I mean it's cool to see that stuff though, because I feel like everybody's trying to like, I don't know, there's so much stuff that you see. I mean, first off, nobody really does videos like, you know, keep going back to it, but Paris and I were talking about that. I mean, we were, I feel like one of the first bands in Philly that really had a quality video product, just the locations that we had, you know,
a lot of bands,
the Satan Asylum, and just the different spots that we went into. So I mean,
a lot of bands nowadays, they're more concerned about their stage show and their stage presence than they are their music, their album covers, and their videos. And I think a lot of bands are missing the point that sure, your shows may be fun and your shows may be cool and like you look cool on stage when you're fucking doing your synchronized movements and whatever, but like at the end of the day, like the album is what got the people into the room to watch you do the thing in the first place.
Sure.
And the videos are what's going to like supersede the shows. Like even if the band breaks up, like the video is going to be what remains and what people go back to.
And the show is what, an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most.
Yeah,
out of how lucky. Much time, right? But the videos and the music, everything else, like it's
timeless.
Exactly. You can spend hours and hours and hours. Like you're going to spend a lot more time with the product of a band than you are with the band.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like I can't count how often like I'll watch like Typo Negative videos. Like fucking Peter's been dead for fucking over 10 years, but like I still catch myself watching their videos going, damn, like, you know, like just low light candles and dead roses. Like that's cool as shit. That's all definitely. It takes.
Yeah. The visual thing is, I mean, you know, for me, just like as a guy that was a filmmaker and just different things that I've done, I mean, I'm always going to have a special place kind of in my heart for the medium of video. So anytime I can find a band or a musician or an act that kind of blends the two, it's like such more of a rewarding experience, you know?
Absolutely. It just, or you're just saying, just made me think of that, how like Native American people are afraid of cameras because they capture your soul when they look at you in the eye. Like music videos do exactly that for the artist. They capture the soul in the video.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you mentioned the new album, so A Proper Burial. And I mean, we're what, 6 days out from this now? 6 days out from the release?
Yeah, less than a week. It comes out this Friday.
Okay.
Friday, January 28th, I think I said it was.
Yeah. And the release is going to be Spotify.
It's Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, and pretty much every like major distributor. Like it's everywhere. I found a great site that I can throw all my albums at, and then they just put them on everything that plays music.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about A Proper Burial. I mean, what are we looking forward to for this?
All right, A Proper Burial, its code name while I was writing it was Witch Punk.
Okay.
It was almost called Witch Punk.
Okay.
But I decided not to at the last minute because I wrote a song called A Proper Burial, and so far it's the only album named after a song that I've released.
Okay.
But
I mean, you're kind of you're batting 1,000 here with names of things, so you really can't go wrong. I feel like
I'm a good namer. Yeah. It's just luck, I guess.
I'm just gonna message you, be like, hey, I have an idea for a song. Good idea for a name. I don't even have to tell you what the song is. Just give me some word. Perfect. That works.
What does it make you feel like? We'll go from there.
That's awesome.
But A Proper Burial is a lot more rough around the edges than my prior albums. It's a lot more straightforward. It's a lot more it's self-indulgent in the sense that one day I was listening to, when I had finally uploaded all my stuff to my digital distributor, and then finally like was able to search my name on Spotify, I came up and I could listen to my discography. I put my shit on shuffle for the first time ever and just had random tracks from random albums all playing in sequence with each other, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it, and it was cool. But like I'd get like a song from Leaves and then a song from Hope and Other Lies, my first album, and then that would jump right into um Crimes, and I did a like an electronic experimental EP called Affection Rabbit, and like listening to all these things in sequence, it was really cool, and it was cool to hear them kind of flow into each other. But I'm sitting there thinking, these don't start very heavy. I don't like that, because I love energetic, fast, hard, heavy music. Like
Sure.
I love punk, I love hardcore, I love metal, I love all that shit. And it comes across on some of my music, I'm sure. Like I write lead guitars, like wailing melodic things, just because I love Iron Maiden. I'm
Sure.
sure you can hear that in some
Yep.
of my leads and that kind of thing. It's like I'm trying to like mash Iron Maiden into like a post-punk hole, and then play what comes out of it. But I don't have many songs that just like punch you in the face as soon as they start. And when I was thinking about that, I realized like I want to do more things like that. So A Proper Burial, I originally wanted to release it in October of 2021. I wanted to release it exactly a year out after Crimes of Passion, because Crimes of Passion was like, it was my lockdown album. Like I was working on it for a couple, like maybe a year or so, and then COVID hit, and then everybody was stuck home doing nothing.
Sure.
So to release something in 2020 was like a badge of honor to me and a lot of other musicians and a lot of just creative friends and stuff, because then it says I spent my lockdown focusing on my creativity instead of just like getting drunk in my house. Because I mean, I was doing that too, but like I was recording it.
Get something out of it. That's
like,
good.
But like there were so many bands, like especially like bigger bands and stuff, that like they weren't doing anything, you know, like they're hiding in their mansions with their families, and they're like doing Zoom calls like this, except they're doing it with their like other members, and like nobody was putting anything out. And like that was the prime time to do it, because everybody got fucking 6 months or so off.
Yeah, there was some interview I read with someone that was like, you know, your favorite bands, if they didn't put out an album during the pandemic period, they're never going to put out an album, because if they can't put one out now, like, because I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan. I mean, I got Slash tattooed on my arm. And they're basically like, you know, we're
all right. I got a Misfits tattoo, so
sure. Well, I'm like that group of fans. It's like still holds out hope that we're gonna get a new record, and we got a couple of, you know, singles with vocals from probably 20 years ago, like, you know, Old School.
Old School was cool. Absurd was kind of gross.
I liked Absurd though. I kind of liked it. I get it, because well, I mean, if you're a fan of like the band, even the Use Your Illusion stuff, they had a lot of the experimental industrial stuff, and they're like, that's something that you think actually.
Especially Use Your Illusion 2.
Yeah,
2 was where it got weird.
My
One
World,
was,
you know, like that. You want to step into my, like all that stuff.
Yeah, with the hip hop beat and everything. Right. Yeah.
So I kind of liked Absurd, but it's like, if they're not gonna if they haven't put out a record yet, they're probably not gonna put out a record at this point. You know, it's like they've had all this time.
And then I saw that they announced an EP, and the EP was those 2 songs and then 2 live songs. Like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, it's just, I mean,
just put out some shit we've never heard, please.
Yeah, it's just, you know, so like I get what you're saying. Like it's super nice to feel productive,
but
it's hard to stay productive.
I was taking time between like doing work shifts and stuff like that, trying to write songs and finish things up, and I was listening to my mixes driving to and from work. Like I said earlier that my writing process used to be lyrics and then putting sounds to those lyrics. Nowadays, I learned a little bit doing Hope and Other Lies. That was my first solo album where like I 100% did everything myself. I had never done anything like it. I wanted to try to thank you. I wanted to just do something that was 100% mine, that nobody could kind of like take from me. Whether or not it was good was completely up to fucking whoever to figure out, but I just wanted to do something that was mine that nobody could take from me. And then after I did that, it was like, okay, now what do I do? But I learned a lot in writing that album and getting frustrated trying to put words to sounds and not having them come off the way that I wanted them to sound. Like there's one song in particular that I think of with that first album is a song called Wooden Bones. And
which is also the name of an acoustic EP.
Yes.
That I like.
It is. I wrote Wooden Bone. I don't normally talk too much about what I wrote songs about because I feel like it kind of forces people to base their connection to the song on what I said it was about instead of finding their own meaning in it and associating it with their own lives and whatever. But like Wooden Bones, to me, I wrote that song a couple months after I quit smoking cigarettes. And like the main lyric in the bridge, that I want you to destroy me, that's smoking.
Yeah.
But like people can associate that with anything.
Sure.
Like anything, you know, like you can find like a habit or whatever, or like a person that you can blame your fucking struggles on, and I want you to destroy me, like that kind of thing. But I was actually working with my dad. We were framing a shed, and just, you know, we're putting like beams on things and making things, and looks like you put up a some framing and you step back and look at it and you're looking at a skeleton of a house, basically, or a structure or something like that. You're looking at wooden bones.
Ooh,
so
okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's all perspective.
So cool to kind of like just be aware in those moments of that type of things, though, because other people would never notice something like that. Just like, yeah, I wouldn't even think about it. But the artist, the creative mind, it's like wooden bones. That's awesome.
So I'm helping him put things together, and I'm humming to myself because we've always got like radio on and whatever. And I just think about music all the fucking time anyway. So like I'm humming to myself, and I'm just like kind of humming that to myself over and over. And I realized I had something catchy on my hands, and it's like fucking 1 o'clock. I've got another 4 hours to go with him before I can even
pull out the phone
wait
and
to
the
get
recorder thing.
Yeah, before I can wait to get home and even do it. And I've had so many times where like if I'll have a melody or whatever come to me, I have to hum it to myself over and over and over until I don't forget it, until I get home and fucking like play it or something so I can save it. And then I can get it out of my system and move on with my life until I come back to that.
That's like so when I worked at my last job, I was an excavator operator. And there was a part where I'd had this riff for a while, and I was on the excavator one day, and it was just like, and I was like, I had the fucking lyrics. So I like had to put the bucket down, get out of the excavator, like run to the, you know, where my phone was, and like do it like the voice memo thing, and then get back on. I was like, I can't forget this.
Imagine getting caught doing that.
Yeah, you know,
rationalize that to somebody that doesn't understand.
I'll be right back.
Like, what are you doing? I got a song stuck in my head. I can't get it out. Shut up! Don't distract me.
But it's cool too, because I know that, I mean, you do like obviously, you know, the music and the visual art, but you do art too. I mean, there's other kind of things that you do.
I love making collages.
Okay.
Mostly because like I like drawing and stuff like that, but I struggle with it a little bit. But collages are fucking cool. Sure. I feel like the music I make kind of comes in collage form sometimes. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Because I'm layering things and stuff, and
that's cool.
I love the aesthetics of it. Like a lot of collages I make are from like old, like I'll find like really like old black and white printed horror comics and stuff like that, and cut things out of them. And like I know you saw the ones that I was doing. I was getting black and white like pictures and stuff, and doing like a layout that was all kind of themed, like everything was relative to each other for the most part. And then I'd find like a really cool glossy cover image of a character and then put them on top of that as like the primary focus of it. And then like I liked doing those because you could look at that character in the center and then look at all the panels surrounding it and kind of build a story around that and build like an aesthetic and that kind of thing. And I really like doing that. And then my friend Heather, you know, she caught me in the middle of a depression I initially approached her because I was doing a podcast with a friend, or with a couple friends. My friend Colby, the bass player, he is the GM for a tabletop streaming series we do called Initiative, where I play a character for him with two of our other friends, David and Nicole. They're fucking awesome, hilarious people that are super fucking smart and just great at writing and coming up with characters and improving and that kind of thing. And we do fucking awesome shit with that. But anyway, we were looking for an artist to draw the characters that we play as, and kind of do some like still like, I guess, storyboards of events in our stream that we had done, because we were looking to kind of expand our audience with the visual quality. And I knew Heather drew, and I knew that she drew some kind of like children's book, comic book kind of like cartoony shit. So I initially approached her like, hey, like, do you want to draw the stuff for us? And she's like, no, but you can. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's so we just started hanging out, and then like we like went out to dinner and got to know each other, because we knew of each other and we met each other through friends and stuff like that, but like we never like got to know each other until like we were like face to face with each other. So we just like hung out and started talking, whatever, and like had dinner and like played the getting to know you game and stuff like that. And then I told her the idea that I like needed her for, and then a couple days later we hung out at a coffee shop, and she just threw a notebook and a pen at me, like a sketch pad and a pen. And like, because I was telling her about like what I wanted and whatever, and she's like, draw it, like draw this, draw that, and she just like forced me to do it. Got me caffeinated and then forced me to draw. And then we just like were talking about shit, and then she threw a black sketch pad at me, and she's like, I can't use this, I don't get how it works, my brain doesn't work like this, here's a silver gel pen,
Perfect,
you can do it. And I was like,
I remember those
all right, I was like, I see what's happening here. Yeah, because I approached you about, because I fucked up on a picture, and I'm like, how do I fix this? And you're like, India ink, and I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, weapon of choice.
Yeah, saved my fucking ass. But yeah, she got me super obsessed, and like with that for like a year straight. I couldn't have enough black paper. And it's been a while since I've drawn pictures like that, but I've been itching to get back into it because it's just been so long. And since I just finished this album, I'm kind of waiting until I'm more motivated musically, because I feel like I've burned myself out. Because like I said, my goal for Proper Burial was to release it exactly a year after Crimes of Passion.
Sure. I mean, you've got full-length albums and EPs and single, like you've got a hell of a discography just like already. I mean, so like when you see you're young too, and you're just, it's crazy the amount of fucking material that's come out of you. It's so cool to me.
A Proper Burial is important to me right now because it's my 27 album.
Okay.
Like, I turned 27 last May. I've got 4 months until I'm 28, and you're a musician, you know about the music and the superstition behind the 27 Club and
Paris's
whatever.
album is fucking, yeah, it's, I mean, his thing,
yeah,
Kurt Cobain was his biggest thing, and the 27, you know, it's,
yeah,
everybody's got the numbers and, you know, the little kind of
things,
little nuances.
A Proper Burial is my 27 album, so I'm kind of leaving it on the table right now. And like, I don't think I'm gonna make anything musically until I'm 28 right now.
Yeah,
because this album, like, if this album comes out and I die in a week, I think I could look at the music I've put out collectively and be satisfied with that being my
that's
output.
a hell of a thing to be able to say. You know, I feel like, dude, we always talk about morbidity. Like, I was driving home with my wife today. Yeah. And I don't know if you know the classical song "Oh Fortuna." Dun, 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 dun,
oh yeah.
dun, dun. So I'm like,
it makes me think of Jackass.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, basically. But I'm like, babe, okay. So if I were to die, you know, I know it's morbid, we'll talk about it. But if I die before you, I want to be cremated. This is what I want playing as I'm going into the oven. Like, I want this song, like crescendo. And she's looking at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm just like, all right, just how my mind works. But I feel like there's always that part of us that's like, you know, if anything happens, this is what I have. And I mean,
Oh,
that's
dude, I wish real life had theme music. That would make things so much cooler.
well, it does if you have headphones in, but for me, like some of the stuff that I'm doing on this record, and I don't want to like get into a shit talk thing about anybody because I'm still friends with some people, but
oh no, I get it, man.
the
Proper burial. I've got some shit talking songs.
right. Well, the recordings that I have, I'm not very
Yeah.
happy with. Long story short, I wrote a lot of songs in my early 20s about just different things in my life that I'll get into maybe later episode. But long story short, I was frozen out of the recording process after I recorded. I was frozen out of mixing and mastering and production. So the recordings that I have aren't recordings I'm happy with. So that's one of the driving forces of some of the songs on this record I'm doing now is just the fact that if I were to die tomorrow, I've said it, if I were to die tomorrow, I'm not happy that those are the only recordings that I have of this,
I get that.
So for
I
you
get
to be
that.
able to say like, man, if some, God forbid something happens to you, like you're happy,
Right.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
not a lot of people can say that. So, I mean,
well, it's been a crazy couple of years with everything. I know you had a crazy couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
In November, this past November, my car got totaled. I got fucking smashed and spun out. I was like, I had a weird like experience where I was taking a left out of an intersection. I had just gotten my current job, and I had just finished the last shift of my 2 weeks of my prior job.
Jesus.
And I'd finished my shift and I was pulling out of the fucking parking lot onto this main road. And as I was pulling out, there was a guy that was taking a right into the intersection I was pulling out of. So we were both turning at the same time and we were just passing each other, There was a guy behind him that swerved around him as I was pulling out, and his passenger side light hit my driver's side light and sent me spinning.
Jesus.
Yeah. All my airbags went off. I fucking did a full 360 and then everything came to a stop. And I just had this like weird moment of like this happened completely fucking out of nowhere, and then everything came to a standstill. And then my fucking radio's still on. I've got Motorhead on. I fucking punched my radio like, stop,
Jesus.
no, silence. And then that happened. I turned off my radio and I'm just looking around like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened?
That's crazy.
And then my first thought after that was like, after an accident, they tell you to stay in your car. I'm thinking all my airbags just went off. It's really fucking cramped in here. Fuck this. I opened my door and then stepped out and looked at my car and I'm like, holy fucking shit. And then I'm looking at myself like, why am I not in pain?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, did I just fucking die? Like, did I just get like ejected from my body? And I'm just kind of looking at this shit. And
Jesus.
Obviously I'm still here and everything was good. And I walked away without a scratch and it was miraculous. But it scared the fucking shit out of me. And it made me realize that life is incredibly fucking fleeting.
Yeah.
And death comes in many fucking forms, and you could die slow in a fucking hospital for 3 months, or you can die as quickly as a car accident.
It's kind of crazy just how fast. I don't think people realize too, or maybe they don't think about it, like how just ultimately fragile life is all the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that we know so many people that are still here every day, just like life is designed to just, nobody gets out alive, obviously, but there's just so many things that can end you throughout the course of a day that you don't even think about. Like, it's miraculous in a sense, just everybody.
And a lot of it's all man-made.
Yeah. But just like the fact that how many people get in a car and drive somewhere and they do that over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, you take it for granted.
Yeah, we do. We just have this inherent feeling that person's going to be here in 5 years. You know what I mean? It's like, you never really know. And I feel
nowadays I'm a COVID tester. Right. People take their health for granted every fucking day.
They do, man. They do.
It's the same thing. Like, you just don't know.
Sure.
Well, I mean, wiping people out
with COVID and stuff too. Like, so I don't. Is there a plan for you to kind of play live, to present this in a live setting? I mean, what's the goal for you with this?
Honestly, there was. It was never really acted upon very much, just because it's difficult to hand people a body of music and be like, hey, learn this so I can
Here's
sing on
80
top
songs.
of
Please
it.
learn.
Yeah. Here's fucking 3 albums, 2 EPs, a
By the way,
couple
the show's in 10
singles.
days.
Yeah, and an
Right.
acoustic album where the arrangements are a little different because I can't do all of that with just an acoustic guitar. You figure it out. I can see where people are like, fuck you, I'm not doing that.
Right.
It's always, it's always been like a dream of mine. I do write my songs, at least I used to write my songs with the intention of playing them live. I realized that kind of holds me back in my writing when I write in that way, because I'm writing for someone else to play what I wrote. And I don't like to limit myself that way anymore. Especially now with COVID being the way it is, and how like tours are coming back, but then tours are coming back and they play a couple shows and someone in their
And
camp
it's
gets
canceled.
COVID and then everything gets canceled again. Like
Right.
now more than ever, the visual component we were talking about earlier matters the most to me. And I wouldn't want to be responsible for being the header of an event where my friends and family and fans and everybody all gathers up in one room and somebody was asymptomatic and didn't know, and then everyone I know is now sick and then mad at me because I gathered everybody there in the first place. You know, like it's a tough thing. And I think that a lot of shows and tours, like tour packages and things that have come out in the past year or so, I think they jumped the gun really bad. Like as soon as the vaccine came out, everyone thought like, boom, we can all go out now. And that's not the case. Like the vaccine to me is like, you take allergy medicine, but if you're still around allergens, you're going to have a reaction to it. It's just not going to be as bad as if you didn't take the allergy medicine.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I don't want to get into whole political science.
Yeah,
thing,
we
but,
could,
but
we could go deep on that.
I love the thing where it's like, well, they had the vaccine and they still got COVID. It's like, well, it's not a total 100% preventative measure. No vaccine is. It just makes it so if you do get it, the statistics of you getting a serious illness, or death are much lower.
Yeah, it just doesn't suck as bad.
Right. It's
but now in the post-COVID world, it doesn't cross my mind to put together a live band. Obviously, I would love to do it. I would absolutely love to if I found people. I know a handful of friends that if I were to try to like seriously push them to do it, and walk them through like how to play the songs and how to do things over time, I'm sure it would work. Like a handful of people come to mind if I were to try to put it together. But it doesn't feel like a responsible thing for me to do right now.
Sure. I think that's commendable though. That's tough too. I mean, you spent all that time. I mean, I guess it depends. Like for me, I was kind of done. I retired from the music business in 2011. I was done. Retired, we did our thing. I was done. And then just doing this record now, and I'm like, man, I think I want to play a couple of live shows again after this. And that's a thought that I hadn't had in 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I retired at 25. I'm 36 now. I was done and out of it by the time I was 25, and that's all I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
So for me to kind of be like, fuck, I think I might play shows again. Like I never thought I thought that door was shut and bolted and welded shut.
Oh no, you can't quit this. This is like the fucking
man.
mob.
That's why I was talking to my wife too, because I'm like, I think I'm going to grab a guitar tomorrow, and I'm like, the bad thing about this.
Don't you blame this on me?
No, this has been in the works. This has been in the works, and then you're helping my case though. But I'm just like, I said to her tonight, I'm like, this is the fucking worst hobby to be involved in, because it's
like
a money
heroin,
pit.
dude. You can't stop.
It's the worst, because I'm like, okay, well, probably grab this guitar tomorrow, but then I also need another mic cable, and then I'm gonna look at some pedals. It's just like, Jesus fucking Christ,
snowballs
it's never ending.
so
it really
fast.
Isn't. But I mean,
maybe avoid an amp. Get a
well, the good thing is I have all my gear that I've had. Like I got vintage amps. I was gonna
say you could get like a USB input. You can maybe get a couple pedals, or you can just get like
the best thing in the
plugins
world.
And
best thing in the world.
There are digital ways you can get around spending so much money.
I've used an audio interface that I had for I mean, I have all my gear. I got nice vintage equipment, amps and guitars and stuff. But the problem is I've moved so many times, whether it was through relationship or moving from this part of Philly to that part of Philly, and I've lost so much shit. So for Christmas this year, I got two Shure mics. I got a 57 and a 58. And I was like, I'm finally going to be able to record my own fucking amp that I haven't. I mean, I got it right here next to me. I got it's a Russian made 1983 Red Bear, which most people haven't even heard of, but it's a Red Bear tube amp. I can't get this thing past 0.5 in the house or it's too loud and it goes up to 10. But it's modeled after the old JCMs,
Yeah.
So,
it's funny. Sorry, I had to interrupt.
No.
They're talking about live gear and stuff like that. Reminds me, I have an abandoned EP that I wish I finished and released. It was called Live and Other Lies, and it was a mock live album.
Okay.
And what I did,
crowd noise.
I kind of.
I think wasn't GNR Lies like the fake live album?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Kiss Alive is a fake live album.
That's true.
Also.
Yeah, that's like the biggest one. Yeah.
There's again, we talked about Typo Negative earlier. Their live album Origin of the Feces is completely 100% fake. They played it in the studio, and then they added audience noise. A lot of the audience noise was multi-layered group chants of the band yelling "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you" to themselves while they were trying to play.
That's great.
But I can't remember when this was. I want to say it was maybe like February 2018. After I recorded Hope and Other Lies and Affection Rabbit, I made a set list, and I took the instrumentals and I put them in a long, like hour-long, like audio file, and gave them a couple seconds of noise in between each song. And my goal was to like lock myself in my bathroom, turn off all the lights, fucking throw on a pair of headphones, cover my eyes, and just pretend I was playing shows, and would play through the track orders and just shout my balls off and sing all the songs, and do that like 3 or 4 times, and then comp the best lines into one set thing, and then re-record the guitars, make them sound more chunky and more reverby and further away, and give them that live sound. Right. And arrange what I would consider my live album or my live set list I would want to present. And it was such a big undertaking that it was really difficult to get through. And I remember I did the vocal takes for it, and I did maybe 3 or 4 songs in that way, and it were kind of fun, but they sounded too much like the studio versions for me to be comfortable with calling them like a live imitation. So I abandoned it, but I do have a demo from A Proper Burial of one of the songs where just my first run through of recording the vocals, they were really energetic, and my mic wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be, and my voice wasn't really on point, but I was really excited about finally writing the lyrics to it.
Sure. And
so the delivery was really sloppy, and it was excited, and I showed my girlfriend it, and like the first time I wrote the song and like recorded it, and I like she was off work a few hours after me, and I remember I got home and I recorded it, and then was excited about it, and then I threw it on my phone and plugged my phone into my car, and I'm sitting in my fucking driveway drinking a beer listening to it on my car radio, and she came home and I'm like, come here, come listen to this. And she sits passenger and listens to it, and she's like 30 seconds into it, and she goes, this sounds live. This sounds like you're like having a cigarette outside the club and the band inside sucks. I'm like, yeah, but that sounds like live, right? And she's like, yeah, I guess. That's awesome. So it makes me want to put audience noise behind it and make it a little muddy, and like call that demo like a live version.
I like that.
But I would love to do a live EP. Like it would be studio live, it'd be phony, but just to play the entire song like on guitar through an amp into a microphone, and then sing the songs, like put all the songs in an order, and then like energize myself, and then have some water in between takes and whatever, and treat it like a live performance, and leave all the ugly details in it, just to have something imperfect but full of spirit. I think that'd be cool as fuck.
Well, I know that you said that you're probably not going to do anything musically until you're 28, but I mean, do you foresee anything in your future non-musical?
I thought about it before I started A Proper Burial, actually, or maybe while I was midway through it. I would like to do like probably a series of like short horror stories or something like that.
Mm,
I definitely, if I'm going to write, I would like to incorporate like the artistic side of things. Like I would
sure.
love to like do short stories and do a handful of visual things for them. Um Comics have always been something I totally fucking admire, but I don't know if I have the caliber to draw panel by panel an entire story. And I
Whole
totally
different ball
fucking
game,
commend
man.
you for being
It's
someone that can do
crazy.
that kind of thing.
It's
I
totally different ball
love
game.
comic books, dude, but I could never, like, when I was like 8 and I'm drawing on pads and making
Yeah,
my own stories, when you just have an abundance of inspiration and
sure.
imagination and creativity and you just are boundless and can't stop, like, that's one thing, but like to do it as an adult, god damn, the time it must take.
I mean, it's yeah, everything is a lot of work, but like I don't know, there's really no other way to kind of do things. You know what I mean? It's like what we love to do, and we're gonna find a way to do it no matter what. So it's
I get it 100%.
to us, it's normal. To other people, it might be like, what do you know, why, how? But for us, it's just like I don't know. It's kind of what we do, what makes us
Yeah,
feel good. You know,
yeah,
because
that's
I
how
feel
it.
like soundtracks and stuff. Just I feel like there's so many things that you would be good at. You know, not that I necessarily if you want to do that kind of stuff, but I could see like movie scores and just different things. Like
I would love to. I've scored a short film
really,
uh for my friend Eric Russo. He directed a short film called Maddie, and it was about, it's like a short 8-minute film. I'm waiting for it to be released online. It's not online yet because he's submitted it to film festivals and stuff like that.
okay,
So once it's gone through the film festival run and it's done all of that, then it can finally be distributed.
okay,
But I did it, oh god, I did it before COVID. Um, but it's a short, like, 2-scene film where the basically the premise of the film is a guy comes home. I don't even know if I can really say this, but so if I'm saying this right now and this is fucking getting leaked out, sorry Eric, but you didn't tell me I couldn't. Uh
exclusives here.
uh it's 2 scenes, and it's a guy pulling up to his house, sitting in his car for a minute, looking just upset and disheveled, and then takes a second to collect himself and then goes into his house, and he walks in, he sits down at the kitchen table, and it's like 7 in the morning, and his wife is like making breakfast or doing dishes or something like that, and there are random scattered shots of like baby and toddler toys scattered throughout the house. And he gets home and he sits down at the table, and she turns around like, where the fuck have you been all night? And then the whole thing is just an argument between a pair of parents whose toddler died,
Oh Jesus,
and they're not handling it very well
right,
because she's trying to hold on to life as normal, meanwhile he's like burying himself in a bottle and,
yeah,
taking off and going to bars and spending the night there, and coming home trashed, and she's giving him shit for it, and it's them arguing about the right way to mourn this thing.
mm,
And when I was approached to do it, immediately as soon as he told me the premise of it, it was already shot, which helped, like, it helped me a ton because it was already shot and edited. It just didn't have any noise, and it made it very raw to watch without any background music because it almost felt real. Like the
yeah,
actors in it were phenomenal. And they yeah, Eric sent it to me, and there's like, the first thing that I did was I brought out a notebook and I watched it a couple times, and I kept watching it for a couple seconds and pausing it and then marking what time I was pausing it at, usually when like scene changes would happen or when different visual changes would happen.
mhm,
So I could, when I wrote the music for it, I could line up different musical changes to like the different scene changes and stuff. So then I could just send him a audio file and be like, just overlap this over your movie, and then it'll already be there and ready for you. And it was my first kind of foray into that sort of thing. And my immediate thoughts when I was watching it, based on what it was about, my first thought was, I'm using a xylophone. Flat the fuck out. I'm using a xylophone for this because xylophones are childlike and they're fun and whatever.
Oh man,
So
that's
I'm
like
gonna,
haunting.
yeah. So I'm gonna take my keyboard and I'm gonna play it on a xylophone setting, and I'm gonna play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in
Oh
minor,
man.
just because it's fucking creepy and
Oh
sad.
wow.
So I did that, and then I added a couple layers on top of it, and I gave it some like kind of Silent Hill drums and that sort of kind of
Oh wow.
like airy, flowy vibe to it,
Sure.
and then left a lot of the background noise out while the argument and stuff was happening. And then it gave him like a credit score where it was like a kind of reprise of the credits in the beginning, with a little more rhythm and a little more kind of energy
Right.
and flow and stuff. But
That's really cool. So you find a way to kind of do your thing on someone else's thing too. It's like,
yeah, and he knew what I was all about, and he trusted me
that's
to
cool.
do it. Like, he would fuck with me and call me Trent Reznor or Phil Collins and stuff like that. And just
Hey
like, it
man.
was always like poking fun, but it was poking
Sure.
fun in a complimentary way, and it
Right,
made me
right.
feel good about it. So when he actually asked me to do something serious for him, I was more than happy to do it.
It's funny you mentioned the Trent Reznor comparison, because I listen to a lot of like the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross stuff now. That's some of my go-to
His
stuff.
stuff is
Like
phenomenal for backing noise.
yeah, man. Even like the girl, the Dragon Tattoo that cover. I'm a huge Yeah Yeah Yeahs fan. I've been a fan of them since 2004.
Mm,
Saw them when they were playing for like 50 people, and then they were one of the biggest bands in the world for a while. But
yeah.
the cover that he did with Karen O of Immigrant Song is just
Yeah, it's
like, man, this
fucking
shit is so good.
awesome.
So
It's so
good.
cool to hear that song in an industrial kind of
And it works,
presentation.
it
Yeah,
it
it
works.
absolutely works.
I
It
love
has
her
the same
voice.
energy, it
Yeah.
has the same fire. It makes you it gives you that same get up and go kind of attitude
Yeah.
that the Zeppelin one does. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's funny too, because it makes me think of like just songs I love, and like I've been really into the Goodbye Horses by Hugh Lazarus for a while, and I'm like, what, I think I might do this. Was I talking? I think I might have been talking to you, like, dude, is a
Yeah, because
hidden track on what I'm
yeah,
doing.
because I showed you the
Oh, that's
Crosses
right. Yeah,
version.
from
That
Deftones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
that was a
Chino
fucking
Moreno from
awesome take
Deftones
of that
did.
too. Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah,
That's a
Crosses is a really cool side project from Chino. He
yeah,
does
man.
more like electronic based stuff, like shit that he can't get away with doing with the
Sure.
Deftones.
That's the cool thing about like having influences but not sounding like the influences, is you can really kind of make it your own. And I know for me it was like when I was just started playing guitar, like 15, 16 years old, Zeppelin and Black Sabbath were like my biggest influences. And once I discovered Zeppelin, it was all over. Like I wanted to be Jimmy Page for the first 2 years of playing guitar. So I mean,
Totally understandable.
right. So it's nice to kind of have an influence, but then feel confident in yourself that what it's with everything, even with art. You have a favorite artist, you have a favorite anything, and you kind of want to emulate. And then you got to
Oh
get to
yeah,
the
yeah,
point that
yeah.
you feel
My
good enough about what you're doing, and then you can kind of do your own thing. So I mean, like,
yeah, I think
do you feel that you're at the point now that you're not really like when you're writing your songs and you're putting your albums together, how much of it is, well, I like what this person did, or you know what, fuck it, they did it this way, I'm going to kind of do it the opposite way, like how much of it is what you're influenced by versus what maybe you're trying to influence?
um I think my influence comes from different places. Like, when I'm writing instrumentals, like we talked about, like how my songwriting method has changed
Mm,
a handful of times leading up to now. But I can finally get to it now. The way that I write music now is completely the polar opposite, where I don't write lyrics first at all anymore. The way I write now is I write my instrumentals first, and then I write lyrics based on how I feel, like how that song or what feeling that song invokes from me, versus what I'm also going through at that particular point in time when I decide to write lyrics. But instrumentally, a lot of my motivation comes from sort of a general sense of, I love like punk and I love metal and I love thrash, and I like fast music, and I like the energy of fast music. I like fast, loose, hard rock and metal and that kind of thing. And
it's a good Motorhead song, by the
I
way, Fast and Loose.
Fast and Loose, absolutely. Fucking Ace of Spades is a fantastic fucking album.
Yeah, man.
Um but when I write instrumentals, a couple bands that come to mind for influence in terms of at least like the like rock and metal side of things, Slayer, because their guitar riffs are fucking incredible. They can be melodic and sinister at the same time.
Sure.
Emphasis on the melodic,
Right.
because you're not getting melody from the vocals, but you are absolutely getting it from the guitar.
Right.
The other one is Iron Maiden, because they taught me how to fucking write melodies.
Mm-hmm.
I've like, you can feel the emotion in their guitar solos. Like they're all their songs are about like books and history and things like that. But like
Sure.
by the time it hits the trading guitar solos, you can feel the energy of the song. And it's like they have great technique and things like that, but they can strip all that technique away and just they can feed you a melody that you can end up whistling to yourself for the rest of the day while you're
Mm-hmm.
doing your own thing, and you still feel that same energy that you did when you heard the song.
Right.
So those two bands did a great number on me in terms of how I write my riffs. And then bands like the Misfits taught me structure, and then bands like AFI and A Perfect Circle taught me aesthetic and
Perfect
atmosphere.
circle. Yeah.
Fucking love A Perfect Circle.
Yeah.
I love anything Maynard touches is gold, honestly.
Yeah. I like Pussifer a lot too. They're another favorite of mine.
Yeah, it's A Perfect Circle always resonated the most with me. I really like Tool and I do like Pussifer, but for some reason A Perfect Circle always felt like my territory.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
well,
just
James is so good in that band too. You know, it's
yeah,
he
they're
brought a lot to it.
they're wonderful. But yeah,
So many influences, man.
instrumentally,
It's crazy. Like how many
yeah.
bands.
Yeah,
It's
instrumentally, it's a lot of shit like that. Honestly, you know what's really funny? My first band was a Green Day cover band.
that's fucking crazy. Wow.
I got like when American Idiot came out, I was like 11 and just
Wow.
loved it.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think about now because that might have been like my gateway into punk music,
Fucking
because
Green
it
Day.
had that simple fucking kick snare
Yeah.
kind of
Hey,
rhythms, and
I
then
remember
that shit's
very
been
vividly.
universal.
Sure. I remember very vividly going to Newberry Comics with a gift card or a gift certificate back in the day. My aunt took me to Newberry Comics in Warwick, and I got Dookie when Dookie
Oh
was
my
new.
God. Yep.
This is like when it just came out, and I was like, she's like, get this one. I'm like, okay. And that was like, holy shit, this band is awesome.
It was
They've
fucked
done
up.
some
That
good
album
stuff,
came out
man.
the year I was born.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of cool that like I said, I'm 36, and you're 27 now,
Yeah.
9 years, but the influences are pretty similar considering,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
but you've always been kind of that older soul though. I feel like even when we kind of met and hung out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have always identified more with older people
Yeah,
than younger people. And I've always liked older music than newer music. I don't
sure.
listen to newer bands very often. The newer bands I listen to, I can count on one hand, honestly. Like
Dude,
the one of like the few newer bands I like a lot of sludge metal and doom metal and stuff like that. And like that shit is hitting like an avalanche flow over the past couple of years. And they're
yeah.
like everywhere you look, there are doom bands.
It's
But
weird because for me, like for new bands, the new bands I listen to are new to me. It's like a used car.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's new
yeah.
to me, but it's not actually new. Like
I get that.
the Spotify playlist, it was like Ghost and Opeth and all this stuff. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
Witchcraft's an awesome
Witchcraft
fucking
is
band
cool.
that I just found
Yeah.
out about like 2 days ago. So I was
Yeah,
like,
they're
wow, I
super fucking
fucking
cool.
love this band,
Yeah, I like them a lot too. The way that they write music is really like incredibly
Yeah.
interesting. It's
Some
funny,
of the
they have an
stuff is
album.
kind of like clutchy for me, which I really like too. And
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of stuff on there. I like it.
What cracks me up is they have an acoustic album called Black Metal. Brilliant.
You know what? I just put that on the other day, and I put it. I'm like, all right, black metal, nice. I'm like, this is
Yeah,
all
and
fucking
it's
acoustic.
fucking straight
I'm like,
acoustic.
okay,
It's
I
so
can dig
funny
this.
to me.
Because even like some of the
um
newer bands for me within the last like year and a half is Ghost. I've
mm,
always known Ghost, but I never was really into them. And then my one buddy I used to work with, we always used to bust balls. He'd be like, yeah, if I want to listen to Blue Oyster Cult, I listen to Blue Oyster Cult. And then
I'm
like
that kind
fucking
of person.
but then like 2 weeks later, he's like, man, that fucking Ghost album is awesome. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like I knew you're fucking,
I honestly haven't given them a fair chance. I saw them live even.
Oh
I saw
wow.
them open for Iron Maiden, and
Wow.
I never really liked them. So like I watched them and saw it, but I didn't
Yeah.
really like care too much about it. But it
I
was
just
also before the sunset, and they're very theatrical and they're very
sure.
stage and stuff.
Right.
So like I feel like I would have appreciated them more if I was in like a dark theater where like their
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I could
stage
see that.
presence and their whole
I could
aesthetic
see that.
actually works in the dark
Right.
versus being in an open air kind of like
See, I think I
arena.
appreciated them more when I realized that they were satire. When they were kind of
Yeah,
making fun of everything that they're singing about. I was like, okay,
right.
it's not like,
I
because
get
I'm like,
that.
are these guys fucking like Satanists? You know, like what the fuck is the deal with this band? And then I'm like, wait a minute, they're just making fun of the fucking
Right.
the establishment of religion, and you know what I mean, all these types of things. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I
yeah.
can get behind that, you know. But yeah, I mean, there's a laundry list of things. I mean, you know, my daughter's listening to Famous Monsters in the kitchen on Saturday mornings when I'm like, you know,
Hell
I got this
yeah.
going on, and trying to get her into some stuff. And
Yeah.
you know, it's awesome. Like,
There are certain gateway bands that kind of open the
yes,
floodgates.
sure,
And Misfits is a great place to start
hell yes.
for sure for kids.
It's so funny. I got a funny misfit story real quick. So
Sure.
I was dating a girl. I don't want to mention any names, but met her at a place that girls occasionally dance at. Started
Roller
dating.
Magic.
Yeah, exactly. Roller Magic. Yes.
Let's go with
So
that.
started dating, and then she was actually friends with Jerry Only.
No shit.
Went to go see the Misfits in Sayreville, New Jersey at the Starland Ballroom,
Yep.
which driving from Philly felt like it was in a different country because it
I
was like a
bet.
fucking 2.5 hour drive.
Yep.
And then years later, fast forward, my wife and I bought our first house, and it was literally a mile and a half from the Starland Ballroom was. So when I drove to work one day, I was just like, holy shit, it was like a flashback of having, you
Yeah.
know, like meeting all these guys and this and that. And, you know, it's just fucking weird. So it's a small world kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that Misfits is a good place to start. I mean, any like of the early punk stuff. I mean, like Sushi and the Banshees. I mean, there's so many
Oh
fucking
yeah,
good
yeah.
bands that
Yeah,
I'm
Susie
into.
is fun. Very, very fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me when I got into like writing music and my decisions for how I wanted things to sound, my first album I ever got that I was given to me for my 7th birthday was Meteora by Linkin Park.
Oh
And I
shit.
swear to fucking God, that album changed my fucking life.
Yeah.
Cause like listening to it, like I was glued to it every day. I could listen to it now. I got a fucking vinyl copy of it in my shelf over here next to me. I just I wanted to be Chester Bennington so fucking bad because his voice was just fucking amazing. He could do
Yeah.
anything with it. It ruled. Like it was as I got older and I got used to singing in bands and things like that, I realized like that higher tone came naturally. I just had to figure out how to add some like salt and pepper to it to give it
Hmm.
that rasp and that kind of
Sure.
shit. And I even still like when I warm up practicing songs and stuff like that, like I'm singing Linkin Park songs because it fits.
Yeah.
And like those guys, like they introduced me like just from listening to their like whole discography as they went on, like they all their influences and stuff introduced me to so many things and broadened my horizons to shit that I would never fucking listen to. Like
Yeah.
I'm a fucking like white kid in Rhode Island in like 9 years old listening to Jay-Z because they did a collab album with him. Like I would never have encountered that shit on my own. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Definitely.
Like
That was like me. I mean, and I grew up in Section 8 housing on welfare, and for me, it was like, you know, I remember being exposed to Guns N' Roses and NWA, you know, and it was like
yeah.
the Ghetto Boys and Def Leppard, you know,
Yep.
and Wu
Dude, Straight Outta
Tang, and
Compton is a fucking awesome album too,
yeah, I
by the
mean,
way.
like, dude, Bushwick Bill, you know, I'm like, no 7-year-old should know who Bushwick Bill is, but it's like, you know, I got Cinderella and Wu Tang. It was, you know, I mean, my dad was a failed musician, you know, he was the guy that was going to be a rock star. You know, he had the rock and roll lifestyle, but never had the record deal. And, you know, I
I
mean,
get that. I think my
he could
dad
sing
was
his
the
ass
rock and
off.
roll lifestyle without being a rocker in
Yeah,
general. He just could make shit with his hands and he was just
sure.
cool.
Yeah,
He's
no,
still that way.
your dad is
You
cool.
know him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my
But
dad, you know, it's,
he couldn't carry a tune in the bucket. At least he's never showed
at
me.
least
But
he's got the
he's cool
buckets
as
though.
shit and he's oh yeah, he's got a ton. But he's introduced me to so much. Like I
Sure.
could attribute a lot of my taste in music to him. Like
Yeah, same.
he showed me at a very early age a lot of cool shit. like we've been talking about Guns N' Roses a lot
Yeah.
often tonight. I remember watching the Use Your Illusion live DVDs as a child
Yeah, man.
because he was putting them on just in the background.
Yep.
But then it's also other stuff too, like in like the 90s, like Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie and Korn and all that like foundational new metal shit that fucking rules. Like,
I remember when
say what you
Hellbilly
want about
Deluxe.
Manson, the way that he is now and everything that's gone on
Oh,
and
I know.
whatever and stuff, but like that doesn't change the fucking
Yeah.
impact he's had on music. He's the reason why I wear white contacts in that video I did. Like,
dude, Portrait was, a super influential album on, for me. And I remember being like 12 or 13 and listening to Hellbilly Deluxe, like I would
dude, that
bring,
album has like every song is a banger on that fucking
dude,
album.
it really
Like,
is,
there's
man.
no bad song on that album.
Rob Zombie for me has been like the one consistent in my life, the one constant in my life. Like I've been listening to him since I was like 12 years old, and I've got
What's your favorite Rob Zombie album?
I
bet mine will surprise you, but it might not because you've heard the music I write.
I mean, I like a lot of the White Zombie stuff too.
Yeah.
I probably have to go with Hellbilly just because of like the amount of times I've listened to that. Like Demonoid Phenomenon is probably my favorite Rob Zombie song. Yeah. But I love a lot of the stuff on Hellbilly Deluxe too, like Sick Bubblegum and what Educated Horses I like a lot too. There's a lot of really good ones. That's my favorite album one too, man.
But it was that album was the marriage to me between Marilyn Manson, because I was always a way bigger Marilyn Manson fan than Rob Zombie.
Well, it's not a coincidence that was the first album with John 5. So
exactly, that's why it was my favorite Rob Zombie album.
Right.
Was solely because John 5 was there, and that was one of the first occasions where I ever heard Rob Zombie play with an acoustic band.
Oh yeah, man.
Like there was Death of It All. That's a straight up like acoustic like funeral like stomp kind of song. It's amazing. But American Witch, that song like hypes me up every single time I hear it. Like that riff is fucking incredible. He could have been singing anything on top of it and it still would have been cool.
It's like there's a couple of bands that I've seen probably like 5 or 6 times. Rob Zombie's on that list. The Cult is on that list. There's just a couple of bands that I've just seen, like not even really realizing it. Like Motorhead, I saw a whole bunch of times, and
I'm very jealous of that. I got into Motorhead a lot later in life, and
dude, I wish, like, man,
I wish I grew up on it because it would have fit right in with all the other shit I was listening to. I've always appreciated like Lemmy and whatever you're brought up on. Lemmy is God, and like of course.
I was a little later to the Motorhead party too. I mean, I was living in Southwest Philly with a band. I mean, the band I was in was called the Camel Toe Riders.
And that's amazing.
I was like, dude, we were literally, it was Aerosmith, Motley Crue, Motorhead, Guns N' Roses. Like we were living the life.
I would love to do insane. Like an old school, like rock/glam kind of project where it was
I would love to do that too.
Like
I mean,
80s hair kind of sound. That'd be fun as fuck. Like I'd love to do a band that sounded like Wasp.
Oh man. Yeah.
Even if it was just like an EP, like just like a solid 5-song thing where it was just sleazy ass metal, like that would be fucking great.
Dude, Cinderella, I mean, Night Song is one of my favorite albums of all time. Like it's such a good record. I mean, I don't really listen to like the, Nobody's Fool, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone, but all the other stuff on like Night Songs, like there's a lot of really good songs. There's so much good music
there's
out
a time and place for ballads.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, everybody knows those things. Like my mother knows those songs. My grandmother knows those songs. But like some of the other stuff on there is really fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, music, we can get off on a tangent and talk about that for fucking 5 years. But
for sure.
At the end of the day, A Proper Burial, we got 6 days till that's coming out. I'm looking forward to that. I really am. Is there going to be any kind of bonus tracks on this too? Is it going to be like a deluxe edition? Or
I'm thinking about it. I've got. See, it's funny to me because this album is one of the few that I've put together where like now that I've done it for a couple of years and I have a chance to look at the way other albums are laid out and stuff, I have sort of like a mental quality control about it now, where like my goal for a proper.
Yeah, I get that.
My goal for A Proper Burial was that I wanted every song to be a single.
Okay.
I wanted like the way that music is nowadays.
So there's no B-sides on this album, then basically is what you're saying.
Absolutely not. Like there's the way that music is ingested by like the general population at this point is you get 3 minutes or less to make your impression, and if you can't do that, then you're already done.
Right.
So my goal for this one was to make every single song as good and as catchy as possible, while also maintaining my general personality and while also giving it like an edge.
So this is like the
And
most mature version of the Band of Phantoms that we've gotten so far, is what you're saying.
maybe,
As
I
far
don't
as
know
like we
about
know, mature, not in a sense, mature in a sense of like, okay, I'm
yeah,
polished. I know how to record the best way, to record me the best way, how I
definitely
present my
that.
songs the best way. I don't mean
Hmm.
mature as in like, they're better songs or anything like that. I just mean as far as
Yeah,
like the
I I
overall thing. It's
I
the
would
most polished,
say
I guess. Maybe the most polished, not the most mature, the most polished.
honestly it'd probably be definitely the cleanest in terms of recording quality. For sure, 100%. The way I approached every song was that every song was its own kind of condensed little thing. So like each song is sort of its own album in a way.
Okay.
Um, where like you can pick any song. Like I have them arranged in a certain order for sake of I like how they sound when they're in order.
Mm-hmm.
But you can take any song of that and of from that album and listen to it, and you can start and end with that single song on its own and be okay with it.
Okay.
Um,
Is there like an underlying theme that's interwoven throughout the songs? Or I mean, I know you're
there
kind of saying each one
definitely,
stands on its own, but
yeah, there definitely is a general theme about this album. Um, I didn't really notice it until I actually had a listening party with my friend Nick, the one that inspired me to do Leaves. Um, I've been doing this for years with him. Whenever I finish an album, I'll throw it on like a flash driver on my phone, and I'll go to his house and I'll plug my phone or my flash drive or whatever into his computer, and then we'll just sit and listen to it. And he sits and gives me his undivided attention for it. We don't even have any videos or anything else in the background. We just put on the song, listen to it. The song ends. We sit and talk about it, move on to the next track, and go for it again. And
that's
it's so
awesome.
nice. It's so nice to have someone who doesn't have a music background, but is an avid lover of it, just to sit and process and digest it and then give me his feelings and his interpretations on it, because he has an incredibly analytical mind.
Just an
So it
honest
helped.
reaction to it, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because like some songs will hit him a certain way and he gets so fucking excited to the point where he wants to like pick me up and hug me. And then there are other
That's
times where
cool.
like songs will hit and he's just like, you know, I get what was going on here and I understand the feeling of the lyrics and stuff, but like I don't know if I understand. And then we talk about it and like I kind of like like give him my points and what was
Right.
going on with me at the time of like writing it, whatever, and explain things from there and whatever. I definitely feel that Crimes of Passion, in terms of like maturity, is my most like emotionally like I don't know. It's hard to say. A Proper Burial is definitely my heaviest album. It's definitely the hardest. It's definitely the loudest, and for sure the angriest. I hold back on saying it's the most mature in terms of songwriting because it's
You're
self-indulgent in
right,
the
right, right.
sense
I
of
get it.
it
I get it.
being I'm feeding into my emotions a lot
Sure.
more than I would choose to do deliberately if I was going to make a certain point.
I got you.
Crimes of
So
Passion
maybe a
is a lot
3 minute
more
song.
poignant and that kind
Sure,
of thing,
sure.
where like there are grooves that are like exploring emotional places that I wouldn't really go to any other like extent.
So
Um,
would it be fair to say that Proper Burial is kind of like, okay, I'm angry, this is my reaction song, whereas some of the other material you've done is like, I've thought about why I was angry yesterday, and this is how I feel about it today.
Yeah, and this is how I feel about it when I think about it, and I've
Okay.
had a lot of time to think about it. A Proper Burial is a lot of raw reactions to things, and
So this is like punching holes in walls, pissed off, like this and that.
a little bit. It's a little self-righteous. I feel a lot of the songs came from places of frustration with other people,
Okay.
and uh not so much jealousy, but like looking at friends of mine and looking at people I know and seeing the opportunities that they have in front of them that they're taking for granted and doing nothing with, versus
Mm,
like shit that like I would sell my soul to be able to do. Going, what the fuck are you doing? Get the fuck up and go.
that's
But
pretty
I
good.
feel like I've always kind of been that sort of person anyway.
Sure.
So there are a handful of songs on A Proper Burial that I wrote with the they were just kind of like vent sessions. They're
Mm.
just like I see what you're doing and you're not doing anything with it, and I wish you would just fucking grab it and go for it, because you can and you should, and I don't know why you're not. And I think that there's a steady theme of that, where there's multiple songs on A Proper Burial where it's a mix of you need to get your shit together and go for it, and I need to get my shit together and go for it. And I think that between Hope and Crimes and all the other material that led up to now, this is my most confident album. It may not be my most mature, but it's definitely, I feel, my most confident, where I've had enough time to grow up and get comfortable in my sound and my territory and the way that I write music and my general presentation of myself, where I'm not so much self-conscious of my sound and my music and my point that I'm getting across anymore. So now I can kind of get to my general messages and what I want to get across to people.
I think it's nice when, you know, if you're doing multiple albums as a musician, it's always good if you can kind of grow from one record to the next record. But it's also nice if you can kind of learn a couple of things, maybe how to do something a little bit better, maybe a technique or a mic placement, but then still keep that same kind of magic, I guess you'd say. That kind of is what you've carried on, you know. Nothing really can, nothing can replace like that first time you pick up a guitar, just when it's that raw emotion, you know, and you're just excited to play something. But then when you kind of learn how to do that better, but still keep that nice raw emotion, like that's like the perfect marriage.
That's like left brain versus right brain. Like you're feeding the emotion of doing the thing for the first time and having fun with it, but then you're learning how to do it the right way, and it turns into more right brain kind of stuff. But it's hard to even kind of articulate like the point I was making with this album. I feel like I've gotten better at being more raw, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Man, being raw is like, it's not easy. You know, even some of the painters, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Francis Bacon. He's one of my favorite painters. He's abstract, you know, he's extremely abstract.
I'd have to say, I probably would know images more than I would know names.
Okay, so you've seen Batman, the original Batman, the scene where Joker is meeting Vicky Vale for lunch. They're going through all the paintings and they're fucking everything up and they're spilling the wood and the paint, they're doing all this stuff. When the guy Bob goes to cut a painting and Joker stops, he's like, no, I kind of like this one. It's literally a guy with like pieces of meat hanging behind him. I don't know if you remember the painting, but that's a Francis Bacon painting. It's called Figure with Meat, right? So he's one of my favorite painters. So long story short, he's abstract. And I feel like that's the hardest fucking thing to do, is something that's looks like there's no methodology to it, but there really is.
But there is, yeah.
So for you to say that it's, you know, you've gotten better at doing it that way, like I totally get that, because that's the hardest thing to do. It's almost easier to write like an 8-minute epic with all these chord changes and, you know, all this other stuff, but to do something kind of raw and good that doesn't seem too kind of convoluted or like, you know, complicated, that's not easy to do. It's really not.
There's a song in particular, we're talking about that comes to mind. There's a song on the new album called Redress, and it's maybe like a minute and 40 seconds. Wow. It's incredibly short. It's just a straight up fast outburst of anger, where all the lyrics are screaming, all the guitar is fast, like tremolo strumming, like fast shit. The drums are fucking crazy fast, and then it hits a rhythm and things repeat and things kind of go from there. But it doesn't have structure. It doesn't have verse chorus kind of formation. It's just, honestly, I had the idea for the intro while I was at work. It was like one of those moments we were talking about earlier, where like something comes to you, a sound, and then you have to, as soon as you get home, you have to get that thing down before you forget it. And I got home from work and I recorded the guitar and threw electronic drums on it, and then put a bass track over it, and then banged out this instrumental in like 45 minutes, and then didn't want to write lyrics because I just wanted to capture the feeling of it. So I just fucking exported the instrumental to my other program that I record my vocals on. I plugged in my mic, and then threw on my headphones and prayed my upstairs neighbor wasn't home, and then just fucking shrieked this fucking thing out and just like screamed like just whatever came to mind to me at the time. And I wrote it as I recorded it. And I know I wouldn't have been able to do anything like that if I hadn't done this entire body of work beforehand.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I was gonna say.
I could spill out a quick short minute and 40 song after writing songs for almost 10 years. But I
Isn't
couldn't.
it awesome though when you're at a point in your career now where you can do a minute and 40-second song and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
honestly, like the songs
3
on this
albums
album are
ago,
some
we're
of the
like, oh, I
shortest
can't
things.
do this. This has to be this
Yeah.
amount of time, has to be this. Like
Yeah.
I think that's
Yep.
the
Yep.
best thing is when you get to that point where you can do that and it feels right and it feels good and it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned from watching, like, I grew up and just once I decided I wanted to start making music and stuff, I paid very close attention to how the bands that I liked wrote their music. So I would watch a lot of like album documentaries and touring documentaries and
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
love
that,
that stuff too.
just to see guys in the studio sitting and hanging out and playing a thing and then putting lyrics on top of it, or vice versa, and seeing how they went about it. And honestly, an album that, or a DVD or whatever, like a documentary that changed the way that I looked at music and changed my process of it, was Linkin Park's Minutes to Midnight documentary. Because what they all did was they all rented out a house for a couple months with Rick Rubin there, and they made like 60 or 80 instrumentals. And then they would, like, everybody separately made instrumentals, and then they all got together in like think tank sessions and played the instrumentals to each other, and then
Wow,
picked and chose which ones were good.
that's crazy.
And then once they picked all of those, they would burn them all to like a disc, and then they would all throw them in like CD players and throw on headphones and go to different rooms of the house and take uh, notebooks and write lyrics to these instrumentals. And then they would all get together in another meeting and play the instrumentals to each other and read the lyrics that they wrote based on how the songs made them feel.
It kind of reminds me because he did Blood Sugar Sex Magic with the Chili Peppers, where they did the same thing. They
Yeah.
rented a house and it was a haunted house,
Yeah.
and they all did that stuff. And you know, they the think tank. Rick Rubin, man, he's
He's a
almost like a
fucking
fucking
genius. It's
therapist. He really
incredible.
is. He's like a guru producer that brings out the
Yeah.
best qualities of everybody. He's like such a jovial,
Yeah,
happy little guy
he's the
too, you know.
weirdest dude. He shows up in like cargo shorts and like a zip
Flip
hoodie.
flops, yeah.
Yeah, he's like balding, but his hair's down to his fucking shoulders. He's got
It's
a
not
beard down to his fucking balls, and
he just
he
seems like
just
the kind of guy you feel good around. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah. I would love to fucking sit and talk with him
no shit.
just to figure out what the hell I want to do.
Yeah.
Because like musically, I've noticed the way that he captures bands. He's done it for so many bands I admire and so many bands that I know of that I don't personally connect with but appreciate. Like he's done amazing things for hip hop and stuff by doing
Sure.
Def Jam and all that, but he's also done great things with like Danzig, like we've been spending all night talking about, and like the Chili Peppers or Linkin Park, or like just, or Slayer, or like
Even the stuff.
his spectrum of bands, that like it doesn't matter what genre you are, he can get the best things out of
Yeah.
them by just forcing them to kind of spend time in a small controlled environment where all they can do is look at themselves
Sure.
and the artistic output
It's very
and see what
introspective. Yeah.
happens. Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important for bands to do.
Sure.
They're just artists in general.
I think
So
that's like the one thing I miss is just working with a producer though, because you gotta be honest, you know what it's like, man. It's a pain in the ass sometimes I have to hit the stop and record buttons and all this other, like I miss being in the
yeah,
booth
and
and just playing and someone did that
yep,
stuff for me, It's like, God
you're on
damn.
take 35 and you want to fucking shoot yourself because you
Yeah,
can't
it's
get
like,
that
God
one
damn it.
particular
Yeah.
note in the solo right, because
I
your
know.
fucking pinky doesn't work anymore because it's
Oh my
cramping because
God,
you've
I
done it
know.
34
I
times.
know, man. It's like,
Fucking
fuck me.
sucks.
Yeah. It just
But
the process of recording is just so, like, I think that's for me, like the ease of recording. I was talking to you, like you mentioned, I was talking to Paris about this before too, how we
yeah,
used to
yeah,
have to record back in the day. It was so fucking hard. And then
yeah,
nowadays, like you have the luxury of just saying, hey, I have an idea. Let me throw this in here. And I mean, I got a loud
yeah.
ass fucking amp here, but I got an audio interface I can just plug in direct and doesn't make any noise. You know what I mean?
I wish I had
We're
that.
spoiled.
When I first started, the first songs I wrote when I was out in Texas back fucking 10 years ago, when I started learning how to play guitar, I was writing simple shit, and my friend Zachy was going to the Arts Institute in Boston to be a like audio engineer, and he was learning how to produce and stuff like that, and he needed artists to record for his projects to turn into his classes and stuff like that, and didn't know very many. So he knew that I was writing music, so he was like, hey, do you want to come record some music for me? Like, you can come crash at my dorm for a week, we'll spend a couple days in this fucking $250,000 studio and just bang out some tunes. I was like, hell yeah. So I had light experience of learning from like my friends when I was in Reason for Treason in high school how to play drums, because when we would play together, we would just do a lot of jams and we would just kind of revolve around playing different instruments and stuff like that. And at the time, the only instrument I ever played was like piano and keyboard and stuff like that, and I could sing passably, but then the other thing I learned how to do back then was play drums. And
so much fun playing drums.
I love playing drums. It's a lot of fun. I don't do it nearly often enough.
So like art for me kind of funds like the little pet projects that I have.
Yeah.
So I did well enough that I bought an electronic drum kit because
I would love to have one.
I started doing the keyboard drums. I'm like, I'm doing like a real organic blues rock, record. I can't have fucking keyboard drums on this. It's not going to do right. So
yeah,
I had, a couple sales.
Or you'd have to have really good MIDI samples that make them sound organic.
Yeah. And I didn't want to, I'm like, I got to go as organic as I possibly can.
It's a tricky thing to fake.
Sure. I can't get a drum kit in here. So let me do the next best thing. And I got the drum kit, and, I'm playing all the drums on the record too. And I said too, it's like, I've been a lead guitar player like my whole career, but if I could go back and start over, I might've just been a drummer. It's a lot of fun playing drums, man.
Yeah, I was always really, really drawn towards drums as a kid. I remember being very young, talking to friends about wanting to be like a band that had like the drummer be the singer.
Yeah.
I never really encountered that aside from
Genesis.
Oh yeah, Genesis. That's it. That was way before my time.
Yeah. Before my time too. Fuck.
That was before my like stream of consciousness.
Sure.
But Atreyu is one of the only bands I can think of, like in terms of modern metal or punk or rock really or anything like that. Like they don't do that kind of thing anymore at all. But yeah, I was always really drawn to drums and to rhythm and things like that. And then as I got older, I ended up getting a keyboard, and then that created a lot of interest in going through all the going through all the settings and realizing I can make any instrument sound with a keyboard except for a guitar.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, so then I had to learn how to play guitar.
Right. Let me ask you, so for me personally, like if it's almost kind of like when I'm recording, I want to lock myself away from any other types of music because I love so many different genres of music, whether it's Nine Inch Nails or fucking Queen or Kings of Leon. Like I'm always listening to something.
Yep.
Right. So for me, it's like, I know there's some artists and there's some bands that when they're recording, they can't listen to anything because they don't want anything to kind of through osmosis permeate what they're doing. Are you like that? I mean, are you able to kind of distinguish between your influences to what you're doing? Or if you're listening to something, is that going to come through with what you're working on, what you're doing?
I definitely think that the things that I listen to come through in what I'm working on.
Right.
There's a song on Hope and Other Lies called Snake Charmer that very much sounds like Tool instrumentally.
Okay. So you're listening to Tool at that point, I'm assuming.
For sure. But vocally, like I think once I became aware instrumentally that it sounded like Tool, I knew that I couldn't approach the vocals like Maynard James Keenan, because then it would just be a knockoff. And I didn't want it to sound like that. So then I dug more into... That's that tough part though,
because it's like, are you going to do something because you want to or because you think you shouldn't,
Yeah. But I've realized that like the way that I write music is a lot of influence comes from different places, and it's different parts of different bands I like that I kind of mash together. So like I could do like that song Snake Charmer that sounds like it's got that like Tool percussive sort of, like it's very chuggy, but it's chuggy in a weird time signature sort of way. I knew I couldn't approach the vocals in the way that Maynard James Keenan would do them. So I thought about how I wanted to approach the same kind of style while fitting the theme and the mood of the song as authentically as possible. And a band I really like that came from the early 2000s that not many people are very aware of, but I think more people should because they're such a great overlooked band, is Trust Company.
I'm not
Their
familiar.
vocal, they were like a one-hit wonder. Their big song was I can't even think of the name of it. But the chorus was like, "Can I break away, push me away, make me fall just to see
I
the
don't know. I
other
can't. I don't.
side of me." It kind of sounds like Chester Bennington. It
Okay.
sounds like a Linkin Park knockoff kind of band. But I
Okay.
really like his, like, I can't even know the singer's name, but I really like his vocal style because it's very gruff, but it's whispery.
Mm.
And it's very like, it's got this like cool, like ethereal kind of snaky sort of quality to it
I can see the Chester
where,
Bennington comparison then. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And having always admired that dude's voice, like listening to a band like Trust Company where it's like that style but focused solely on like Chester vocals, it's like a mix
Mm.
between that whispery raspy quality versus shouting on choruses. And um the like just that particular sound has always like made me envy the way that they write, and
Yeah.
it's made me wish I could kind of do something like that. So I kind of plucked that from like my general knowledge of just like I know this and I like how this sounds and I want to do something that sounds like this, and kind of put it on top of that song Snake Charmer just to see how it sounded. Like I wrote some lyrics and I wrote like a verse and the chorus just to try it out, and I recorded it and did like this kind of like hushed, kind of put some gravel on my tone and tried to kind of weave my way through the song, and then
Right.
hit a chorus and belted it out and played it through and listened to it on like the demo and loved it. So then I wrote the rest of the song. And now the way that I write songs, I try to come up with melodies to fit the instrumental, and then once I have an idea of how my vocal melodies are supposed to sound, then I'll think about how the song makes me feel and what's going on around me and
Mm.
what I want the song to be about. And then I write lyrics based on how the song makes me feel and what's going on personally. So it comes back around to where instead of writing lyrics and then putting music to the lyrics, I'm writing lyrics to the music now.
Right.
And I've been doing that for I did that. I started doing that at the beginning of Crimes of Passion, and now I did the entirety of Proper Burial that way. And now that's the only way I write music because it feels the most authentic to me to
Yeah.
do it that way.
Really organic too.
Yeah, and I like doing it because it singles out the melodies to me, and I can write like the catchiest shit, because if I'm driving around listening to my instrumentals and I catch myself humming the same gibberish over and over, then I know
Right.
I've got a catchy melody.
Something's good there. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah, so now I got to put some words to it, because if it's getting stuck in my head, it's going to get stuck in other people's heads.
Sure.
So now at that point, then the responsibility as an artist comes in of, what am I going to get stuck in somebody's head?
Right.
Like, what message am I going to convey that's going to get stuck in somebody's head? Like, what is that going to influence them to do? Like, how am I going to better them or make them more motivated to carry on
Right.
their life, you know? And you have a lot of power as an artist, and I think a lot of people don't really realize when you can kind of weave into people's psyches in that way,
Yeah.
and
That's
kind of plant ideas and things
sure.
like that. Like you have a shitty moment in your life, and then like you remember a song that like reminds you of it, or you have like a great moment, like
Yeah.
you like
Songs are
on
sure.
payday you want to listen to gangster rap, but when you're broke as shit and you're heartbroken and you're lonely, you want to listen to the Smiths.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
there's
man.
it's not a coincidence.
No.
You're not cashing a $10,000 check and putting on Morrissey.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully, if you are, there's something else going on. But no, I mean I totally understand. Like I was saying before, when I was super depressed in my early 20s, it was like the fucking Crow soundtrack over and over again,
Yeah,
because
it's the cure.
I felt terrible, and a lot of those songs just kept me feeling terrible. So it was a win-win.
Yeah,
It was great.
because well, it's a
That's what
bonding
you
experience
identified. Yeah,
that
it really
yeah,
is.
it's a bonding
It's totally
experience that the audience is having with the artist, and that's why when people meet like
Yeah.
artists or celebrities or people that they admire. They're like, dude, I fucking love you. But
Yeah.
it's you love this person because of how they spoke to you. Like you don't
And they
know
might
this
not even be
person.
speaking to you. Cause like you said before, you wrote a
Yeah,
song about
yeah,
cigarettes, but someone else could have taken that as a heartbreak and be like, this guy knows what I went through. And it's something totally
exactly.
different. That's such a
And
weird thing too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've had songs I've put out resonate with people in strange ways that I've never even considered.
Yeah. I
Like
guess it's weird.
it's
Like you can't really ever, I mean, you can to an extent, but it's hard to really fully anticipate how someone's going to take in what you're putting out,
oh yeah,
whether it's,
you can never fully predict that kind of shit at all.
and that's whether
Like
it's a
you
musical medium or an art, visual medium, you really can't.
yeah, like especially like visually, you don't know what somebody else is going to see in that thing that you're putting out.
Sure.
Especially
Hopefully
like
they see
abstract
something.
things and stuff
Yeah,
like that. Like it's
for
one thing if
sure.
you're doing like a caricature of like a popular character or whatever,
Right.
but it's a whole nother thing. Like if you're like putting out some like abstract art or you're mixing ideas together and coming out with like a very particular image that you like came to and then decided to make and put out into the world, and then people are interpreting it in a completely
Sure.
different way. Like the very beginning of the pandemic when shit was really weird and like the toilet paper shortage. Remember how fucking weird that was? It's like
Yeah, that
spend a
was
minute on that.
it was
Uh
it was totally honest because I remember thinking to myself, like, listen, not for nothing. I don't think that this is the end of the world. But if it was, the last thing I think I'm gonna need is toilet paper because I can
for
use
fucking
literally
real,
anything to
right?
wipe my ass. You know what I
Hell
mean?
yeah.
Like I literally could use any, I don't have, I
um
can just hop in the shower. Like the last thing I'm worried about is fucking toilet paper. I can't eat
I
it.
yeah, I remember like it was like that week when like the beginning of lockdown kind of started to hit. It was like April 2020 it must have been.
I just
um
remember seeing an arm guard at Walmart about toilet paper, and it was at that moment that I just knew that we're fucked.
oh absolutely, yeah.
We're
As
so
a species,
we have no
humanity is
yeah
absolutely screwed,
society,
dude.
like
Like
the world, like
we
we're
yeah,
fucked. We're fucked.
yeah.
It's totally
There's
done.
no hope, there's no hope. There's absolutely no hope. But I remember it was the very beginning of the pandemic. Everything closed in March, and then April, everybody was just like starting to venture out to stores and get supplies and things and whatever. And like you literally couldn't find toilet paper anywhere and whatever. And I remember driving around with my cousin Jessica, and we went to like 5 stores and literally couldn't find toilet paper, and it was just getting annoying. And we ended up going to like a Dollar Tree of all places and
Dollar
just
Tree
bought
had
us
everything,
we
man. They had the
bro
disinfectants.
we bought a surplus of tissues.
Yep.
And I don't even care if those fucking messed up like whatever their plumbing was. That was the only solace we had at the time. But
Oh man.
we spent like 3 hours
Yeah.
driving around looking for fucking toilet paper of all things. It was stupid.
What a
But
crazy time.
that day when we got back, I had I had my backpack with me. We were hanging out at her house, and I drew a picture of a skull wearing a surgical mask. And I would love to like repost that picture nowadays
Yeah.
because like 2 years deep into that, that means a completely different thing than it did back then. Like to
No
me,
shit.
back then it was just like I like skulls and we're all wearing masks now. And I feel like this is the perfect pinnacle of
Yeah.
how things are. But I put that picture out before like back then, and honestly, when you look at it, you can see the mask and you see the lines and things like that, and you can kind of tell it's a skull because you can see like the hollow eye sockets, but it kind of looks like a lima bean. And I remember somebody fucking told me that that picture looked like a lima bean, and I was so offended by it.
Oh man. Yeah, it's so art is so subjective, and I mean,
Yeah,
I get that.
like you could have the most honest, pure, and like poignant opinion, and like just like the strongest point you're trying to make with this art. Like I'm putting a surgical mask on a skull because we're in the middle of a pandemic where everybody is trying to stay
Right.
away from each other's germs, and this is how life is now. And somebody fucking called it a lima bean.
Hey man. Some
Like
people
it's so funny.
some people just lead with the critical though, like you share something with someone and their first
Oh
reaction
yeah.
is to tell you how you could have improved it, and it's like just take it for what it is and just appreciate for what it is. Like not everything has to be corrected. Sometimes
Yeah,
things are
yeah.
done on purpose for a certain way, and might not even be
the
finished. It's like, what are
yeah
you really kind of judging things on? But
the seasoned artist and musician in me now, when people are critical of the shit I make, is like now I just want people to be like if they have a criticism of me, I'm more just like, okay, then do it better.
right, exactly. And they
Like
can't, and
you
they won't.
yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
like their talent is being able to be critical. They don't
yeah.
actually
And
have ability to provide anything or present anything.
no, there's no talent in that unless you're offering constructive criticism. And
Sure.
if you're not
But even
offering
then, if
constructive criticism, then you're just kind of being a dick.
sure, and even then, if it's constructive criticism, just try to deliver it when it's asked for. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure.
It's warranted. But yeah,
Like,
man,
yeah.
a proper burial. Just like having talked to you about it now for a bit, I'm really excited for this. I mean, I was excited for it before, but now I think I'm more excited for it because I have a little bit of inside information, I guess. Like I kind of know what to expect, what's coming down the
Yeah, for
pipeline.
sure. I could go through a list of all the songs and what each one individually means, but I don't want to sway your
Sure.
interpretation of it. But what I will say is that A Proper Burial is the title song and it is also the last song on the album, and there's a reason for that. And it stands as what I feel is one of my best songs I've ever written. And I want that to be what stands as the general message of the album.
I love it.
Um, that song in particular, the way I wrote the verses, if you've listened to everything kind of in chronological order, I make a lot of references to my first album's lyrics throughout other songs in my later releases. And I continued to do that in A Proper Burial. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted it to feel like a closing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the
So
burial is usually the last part of the ordeal.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? So
When I told my friend Colby, actually, the bass player friend that's down for everything, I told him about the album and what I wanted to call it and everything like that, because he asked me how things were going. And it was like 2 months ago when I was finally wrapping it up, and I'm like, I think it's about done. And he's like, what's it called? I'm like, A Proper Burial. And he goes, that's perfect, because then you can do like a resurrection EP and then you can keep going past
oh,
that point.
shit.
And I was like, hell yeah, I totally could, but I don't know if I want to.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
hell yeah, I could.
yeah.
uh I do want to keep time between me writing new music versus me releasing music, because I feel, as a lyricist and as somebody who wants to write music in the sense of like making a general point about things and having like educated opinions on things, I need to learn and grow and experience life more
Yeah,
before I
I get
start
that.
to write new things.
Sure.
And I don't want to just bum rush it and kind of be in a place of I'm forcing myself to do this because I want to stay on top of my skill, but I don't have anything to say right now.
Yeah,
So I'm just gonna write songs about hell yeah, love rock tonight. Yeah. Like
yeah.
no, like
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like there's so many artists that can just write a song about maybe a thought that they have. It's not necessarily something they're experiencing, but maybe something they heard
Hmm,
about. And there's other artists that Paris was on, and he was just basically talking about too. Like if he's not feeling something, he can't write a song about it. Like he can't kind of fake it.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
I agree. Like all my songs for all my albums are relatively autobiographical.
it's just a snapshot of where you were at that moment in time, which I think is the coolest thing.
Absolutely. And that's why I can't spend more than 2 years or less, or
Yeah,
2 years or more rather, on an album, because the music represents such a snapshot of
mm,
my life and things keep changing so often and so steadily
sure.
that if I spend too long working on an album, then that album no longer represents the present to me.
Yeah, and then sometimes you don't want necessarily to be, you don't want a song to be the healed version of you. You want the song to be the hurt version of you. And if you
For
take too
sure.
long
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
if you take too long with it, sometimes you're more healed than you were hurt, and it's kind of lost the purpose of the song to
Yeah,
begin
and
with.
then you're kind of just phoning it in for the rest of
Sure.
all your takes. Like the first, especially with vocals, if you know the song well enough, your first take is the most honest take.
Yeah. I feel like
Everything
that's with
else
even
after
guitar
that point,
solos too. I mean, it's
yeah, it goes back
there's a
to
lot of
the
things.
emotion in the
Yeah.
solos thing. Yeah, like the first one, even with all of its flaws, is the most honest.
Yeah.
And I try to hold on to that, because the best thing, like if you're like lead guitar or lead vocals and that kind of thing, like with that being the most honest and raw thing, from there you can always add backing and kind of fill it in and kind of scrub out the flaws in it. But sometimes the flaws in vocals are what makes it beautiful.
Sure.
When your voice cracks in certain words
Yeah.
and whatever, like when that happens subconsciously, there may be a reason for that, and that may be what resonates in other people.
Kind of a blessing and a curse though too, because I know that it's like, for me as a lead guy, the solos was always the thing that I was the most self-conscious about, because it was the thing that was the most dear to me. It was the thing that was the closest to my heart, what I was trying to kind of present to someone, you know, in the
I get
context of a
that.
song.
Yeah,
So
because
it's kind
that's
of, you
when
know, that's that
that's when
blessing
the
and a curse. Because
that's when the guitarist is front and center and has the spotlight.
yeah, but it's also, I feel like, when you're the most kind of critical too, is when you're the most exposed.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. It's rough as a solo musician to, like, you can hide behind a wall of heavy sound, which uh maybe with a proper burial I kind of do that a little bit, but I'm kind of refining my points and stuff. But I'm definitely at my most vulnerable when my music surrounding me is softer,
Right.
because I feel like
Nothing to
I'm
hide behind.
more,
I get it.
yeah, I'm more willing to go to places that that the music wouldn't take me to.
Like the old guitar
Like,
player trick. Like, you want to see how good a guitar player is, turn off the distortion. You
yep,
know.
make them play acoustic.
Yeah.
Yeah. um but there's a, I think a 2 or 3 song kind of weird quiet meditation that happens in Crimes of Passion, where there's a interlude track, and then I think it's The Bridges We Have Burned and then Ghosts in the Hospital, where it's this like 10-minute moment of just calmer, softer songs, where lyrically the way I wrote was way more vulnerable, and I went to places I wouldn't be comfortable to go even live. It's like songs that, like, I was writing for the sole sake of, I need to get these off my chest, and
Right.
if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be fulfilled in this situation. But like, especially Ghosts in the Hospital, that song really it feels silly to say that it haunts me, because obviously it's a song about ghosts, but that particular song, it was a venting of visuals I saw spending time literally in like being a visitor in the ICU as my mom was like sick and dying. And there's no other place or no other kind of sound that I would feel appropriate in conveying the images in the lyrics. Like it wouldn't work if I wrote like a heavy simple 4 chord
Sure.
like hardcore punk song too, like to tell the stories of being hooked up to
Right.
fucking tubes and wires and whatever. And it felt like it deserved that kind of respect, but I also needed to write in that way so I would be comfortable in letting my guard down,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's I think vulnerability in music is something that everybody relates to. And, you know, I kind of, you know, had the conversation with Paris, just as far as the outside person doesn't necessarily know all the stuff that went into creating that moment, that sonic moment that you're experiencing. So it's
Yeah,
nice to
yeah,
kind of get the backstory a little bit, and a little bit of an insight of, you know, what made the person feel the way they felt to present how they felt this way, and to be able to
absolutely,
appreciate that, you know, I think is really
absolutely.
important. Um, but I mean, 6 days away. Are you excited?
I'm absolutely excited. I
Is it a
can't wait for
feeling of
people to hear
relief?
this.
Is it a feeling of excitement?
It was a relief to me when I decided to put the album on the fucking internet and get it distributed.
Right. So now it's just kind of
Because
done. The kids are off to school. You can relax
yeah,
now, you know.
my goal was that I wanted to get A Proper Burial out in October, but the way life was going at that
Sure.
point, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't motivated enough to finish the small tidbits of things that needed to get done, because like with A Proper Burial being my third like major release, like major like full length release, I going through this so many times, I know what I have to do to get it out because I do this on my own.
Hmm.
Um like my big thing is getting it onto Bandcamp, because on Bandcamp people can buy it and I get a decent chunk. I get the most chunk of money from my releases from Bandcamp. Like they give the most generous like
Percentages
profit
to
for
right.
me. Yeah, because they I feel like it's run by artists, so they must respect artists too.
Yeah.
Like Bandcamp Fridays during lockdown was incredible. They were
Yeah.
just they were
Taking me back to Bandcamp days, man. Oh, it's been a long time.
but they were Bandcamp Fridays. It was like one Friday a month during the entirety of 2020 and 2021. I think they were waiving all the processing fees, and they were just giving artists 100% payment for albums. It was
That's
incredible.
crazy. Wow. That's insane.
And during that whole time, 100% of the sales of my music was all leaves. Everybody bought leaves. Everybody bought leaves.
I guess it's
And
appropriate for the time.
Leaves is a blessing and a curse to me. I can't. It's a great fucking album, but I wrote it in 2 weeks and I just have put it out, and I've spent so much more effort on all my other music,
Yeah.
and it doesn't get nearly as much attention. But that's okay. Like it doesn't bother me because I like that people even listen to anything I've ever put out.
Sure.
I just wish people spent more attention on the other stuff, but that's okay because my other stuff is a little more polarizing. So it doesn't bother me that like the people that listen to the other things I make even pay attention to it. I'm just grateful for the attention in general.
The same thing with art, man. There's pieces I spend hours and hours on trying to capture realism, and I'm like, I want people to be really, to really love this piece. It's like, oh, what's that? What's that you did? That's really cool. I'm like, that was a fucking warm up. Like that wasn't even.
Yeah, then you throw some bullshit out in
like,
10 minutes, and that's the one that everybody loves.
It's like Jesus Christ, yeah. Like,
but
what about this? That's so crazy. So for the fans out there, like Bandcamp, where else can we hear your stuff? I know we have Spotify, you said Apple Music.
Fucking everywhere. What I was saying with like the release process of things now, I personally like to make my own audio rip videos for YouTube that are on my channel because everything I've ever made musically is on my YouTube channel.
Okay. Plug your channel. Let us know where we can find that.
My YouTube channel is actually I got my URL way before I even had the Band of Phantoms. I think it is youtube.com/the Clockwork Boy.
Okay.
So I had a really weird like steampunk thing.
I'll make sure to put all your contact stuff in the description of the video too. So
I know my Bandcamp is thebandoffphantoms.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
And then all my social medias are usually cc_phantom. I like to go by CC Phantom for everything. I guess it's like if I ever had to pick a stage name, I guess I would go with CC Phantom. It just kind of fits everything.
Yeah.
When I used to make uncredited music actually for my friend Nick that I did leads for, and he would credit me as CC Phantom. And it kind of bugged me for a while because I'm like, dude, just call me Cory Croft. And he's like, no, I'm protecting your identity. I get way more fucking attention than you can handle right now. I'm like, fuck you. He's like, no, trust me.
Right.
And he was right because he's got over 500,000 YouTube subscribers, and he's told me some crazy fucking stories just dealing with the general riffraff that is psychotic people on the internet that want to find out who you are and where you live. So he runs everything by a stage name, and honestly, I don't blame him for that. Like my birth name has a cool ring to it, but I'll go by CC Phantom if that protects me from crazy people.
Yeah, totally.
But CC Phantom is kind of what I use on everything. I do CC_Phantom for a lot of things, or CC_Phantom 138 because the Misfits.
Sure. We are 138.
Yeah, exactly. But my Instagram is CC_Phantom. My Twitter is CC_Phantom. I think even my fucking like PlayStation Network account is CC_Phantom.
Well, don't give that out. We don't want people hitting you up on like Destiny or Call of Duty or something. You know what I mean? Hey man, Lee's was great. What the fuck? I'm trying to play this fucking deathmatch. You know what I mean? Like,
don't ask me about my music, man. Dude,
what
I'm
the
fuck? Kill you right now. God
capture the fucking flag, man. Don't worry about track fight. Like leave me alone. Well, I'll make sure to put all your contact information in the description of the video too.
Yeah,
so
much
people
appreciated.
can access that too. Like, man, it was awesome having you on. It's a pleasure talking to you. You're a great dude, super talented in so many different ways, and I really hope that people listening to this show, listening to this episode, can get a better understanding of where you come from and kind of meet the man behind the music a little bit. The whole point of this show is I feel like I know, I guess I was just kind of sitting back and like, man, I know so many talented people, artists, musicians, like actors, filmmakers, chefs, and everybody's got an awesome story, and I just want to give people a platform to kind of share their story a little bit. And I think that we did that tonight.
Absolutely. I was more than happy to be here. I haven't ever really had a full chance to kind of share my side of things. Like,
Sure.
I have the artistic presentation of things, but I never really have the personal opportunity to justify the shit I put out.
Sure.
And
well, I know the moment that we get off, it can be like, fuck, I wish we would have talked about this. Oh, fuck, I wish we would have talked about this too. But the good thing is
probably,
it's a low-key podcast. I'd love to have you back on again.
I would love to be here. It's been
sure,
great. I've enjoyed this whole time, man.
We appreciate that. So 6 days, A Proper Burial, January 28th, available everywhere, all major music platforms. Make sure also Starving Artist. Every time I fucking literally name my podcast, the one thing I can't say without slurring my words.
Starving
Artist podcast. Available on all major podcast.
You know
platforms.
how hard it is for me to say Cory Croft? Like, there's too many R's in it, dude.
Yeah,
like I've been saying it since I could speak, and I still can't fucking say it right.
I feel like every time I say the name of the show, it's like people are gonna think I'm having a stroke or something.
But, I feel that 100%.
But the Starving Artist podcast. Visit us online, df3inc.com/SA podcast. I also just uploaded a contact form. If or if you would like to be a guest on the show, just fill out the form and we will be in touch. We appreciate it. But Mr. Croft, Band of Phantoms, it was awesome having you. Really appreciate
Mr.
it.
Fowler, it was great to be here.
January 28th, The Proper Burial. Make sure you check out the other albums on Spotify, Bandcamp, Apple Music, and every major music place out there.
Yeah, if it's got electricity and internet, my music's probably somewhere in that mix.
I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having you on, or thank you for being on.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was awesome. We'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
The Starving Artist Podcast with Dave Fowler.